I guess we'll just start off with the first thing we started talking about, the whole trans thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just go with that. I'll let you get first one in.
All right. Basically, this is pretty simple. Like I said in the very beginning, that men have a dilly, women have a hoo ha, right? That's pretty simple. Now that's common sense to basically everybody since the dawn of time. That's how we've been able to reproduce by knowing that. See, if we didn't know that, we would have been confused back in the day because we would have been like, oh, like can you imagine like a caveman like scratching his head? He's like, "Duh, what do I do now?" Like we wouldn't have never made it this far in civilization if we didn't know that basic science, you know?
Yeah, but in just a case like, does a male dog know that he's a man? Does he have like
Uh,
the big societal influences of like any of that, or does
uh,
a male dog just kind of hump everything in existence?
I know, but we're not dogs. You see the problem? Because you're comparing us to something.
Well,
Oh,
you're pulling an appeal to nature right now. You're talking about like natural society. Imagine a caveman. You're going back to our very basics. Well, I'm
yeah.
pulling up something that is still kind of in that same evolutionary stage mentally. You
I
know.
just don't think it's just not comparable because like that's the difference. The canines are not Homo sapiens, right? So
Okay,
that's the
fair.
basic difference, you know.
Okay,
So
but what about a monkey?
a monkey, yeah. What about him?
Okay, caveman, monkey,
Yeah,
the return to monkey kind of thing. Basically, what I'm saying is like you're pulling up something like, let's go back to basics. Well, let's go back to our natural animalistic nature. Well, let's look at how animals, with their natural animalistic nature, treat these things.
right.
Not to mention, if we do go back into like, let's just take your argument to just go to like historical examples of man versus woman. There are countless societies that had like several things of third genders and trans men and trans women.
Oh, that's cap. That's cap.
That's not.
You're
There's the
that,
if you look in pretty much all of the Americas, in some point or
I've
another.
heard of this before because like what they say about that is not entirely accurate. Like they still the whole thing about like two spirits and this and that. That's like
Oh, he's gone. Uh, yeah. Look at pre-colonial Philippines. I was about to get to that one. I was going to get to the Mayan example specifically, but yo, you good? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? He's gone. I don't know what happened. He's just gone. Um, I'm still on call. Maybe he hit a dead zone. Uh, hey yo. Oh, you're back. I think. You good?
oh
Hey, can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you now. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just saw that you left the call. I was like, oh god.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
It must have cut off or something. I don't know. I was in the middle of talking and then
oh
yeah.
shit. Who knows? But yeah, we're talking about the societies having more than two genders.
Yeah,
The
because
two
like
spirit one, that is kind of more of the more known one because that follows mainly through the Mississippian culture and all of that, the societies
yeah,
that come
but
from
that's not
that.
even like representative of most of the native tribes in the Americas
No,
anyway.
you're right. That's just more of the Mississippian tribe descendants, which is the majority of the eastern tribes in the U.S. However, even Pacific North Islanders had that, Mayans had that, Aztecs, several Incan nations had it during the conquest. Even the pre-colonial Philippines before the Spanish got there,
Yeah,
uh,
but let me ask you
Indian
this:
society, as in like
is this
the
yeah
subcontinent.
is this more? I think that though, as far as that type of stuff goes, I think that what see, I don't know if the call got disconnected while I was saying this, but I was saying that we're people nowadays. I think they're retroactively imposing like these modern views about gender onto these like cultures that go back however many hundreds or thousands of years. Because I think in some of those cases that has less to do with like whatever you call gender norms or whatever. That's just more so like it was like a spiritual thing. I don't think that was like necessarily about them challenging their own idea of gender or some shit like that.
Well, it wasn't them challenging their idea of gender mainly because it was just already just accepted as just a fact. The whole thing of like how back in the day trans people used to describe themselves as like a female mind in a male body is kind of similar just to having like, oh, the spirit within my body is different than that of, of a man. I have
Okay.
both the male and female spirit. And to the point, it's just like a way of explaining it. It's
Yeah, I don't. I
honestly kind of
mean,
simple.
okay. I mean
Similar, not
that
simple.
that may be, but I'm just saying that I think the example that people like to use, I think that they're extrapolating more out of that than is really there. And like I said, most of the native populations weren't really that they didn't practice that type of stuff to begin with. But I'm not an expert on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were all about that. But from what I know, they weren't really. That was not like a usual thing.
Well, it's just more of a case they pull it up as an example, as showing like, hey, this isn't some new phenomenon. This is something that's happened a while. Just like how back during the gay rights movement, the initial one back in the 80s and 90s, people were constantly pulling up like medieval France and England because there was just a lot of written documentation of like lesbians, gay men, that
Yeah,
people talked about the Roman society.
amongst the elites mostly. That's
Well,
like where
that's
all the
mainly because that's where most of the written documents were. You know,
yeah.
they weren't
That
writing
wasn't like
about
a
like
normal.
they weren't writing about like Edward Joe Schmo of like Wessex who owned a potato farm in 1640
Yeah, well,
whatever.
because those people usually weren't. They weren't usually like that. Like, there's a direct correlation between like their aristocracy and like homosexuality than there is like when it comes to like people from the lower classes. It's kind
And
of weird.
not really. It's just more because there was more written documentation about these richer people.
But see, but even today though that exists because it like okay, I get it. Like obviously some people are like born attracted to what they're attracted to, but I'm saying that even nowadays like that is still an ongoing phenomenon. Because think of like check this out, right? I bet you never thought about this, but what who funds all these LGBT advocacy groups and the like? It's usually like wealthy, liberal philanthropists, right? So it's like a top-down sort of cultural phenomenon. It's not from the bottom up, but it comes from the top.
Well, right, but who funds like literally almost anything? It tends to just be from the top down. Unless you're talking about like religious things, then yeah, we can get into that. But the reason why you tend to, I know kind of like what you're saying, because I've heard the argument before of like, oh, rich people tend to just be more promiscuous with their sexual appetite, is how I've heard it phrased. But
Yeah,
it's mainly, and they'll point to like, look at all these wealthier areas as opposed to like these poorer areas having like higher rates of acceptance and higher rates of just LGBTQ people in general. And that's more of just the rural areas tend to just be a lot more conservative. Poorer areas within the country just tend to be a more conservative leaning, roughly. They also tend
yeah,
to be more Christian, more religious in general. Like the Bible Belt, is the least accepting of gay people within the whole
sure.
country. It's very rural down here, and it's just also very poor.
What state are you in?
Mississippi.
Okay, Mississippi. Well, so for instance, I mean, well, even outside of the Bible Belt, you still have, I mean, communities, let's say in the Midwest and such, that, as you would say, would lean more conservative, just on like a cultural level, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, though, is that like the whole like social permissiveness and liberalism, like social liberalism, all that stuff. That's like a top-down sort of thing where they're trying to like artificially impose things onto the majority of the population, which isn't having it. So that ties in with the whole transgender thing. And I'm not sure why. Like people have their own theories as to like,
Well, not
oh,
to,
like
not
what's
to just be rude and cut you off, but like, how is being more accepting of like LGBT people imposing anything on you know the rest of society? Like, how is
okay.
just being more accepting of someone's existence detrimental to you in any way?
Well, see. I used to think of it. I used to actually think what you just said, right? I used to be like, well, they're not bothering me and do. Well, it's not really. See, it goes beyond that though, because what they're trying to do with a lot of this type of indoctrination is that they're starting them off really young. I used to be of the mind that like when you're 18, you should be free to do what you want to do, right? But now they're talking about like giving like elementary school age children hormone blockers and that sort of stuff. Like they're trying to like normalize the very idea of doing so. So to me, it's a little bit unusual because I used to think that like, oh, the LGBT movement, like they just want to be like, I'm sure you know what the majority of the people that are in the LGBT, I think that they are just normal people. But like I said, it's all about like who can like where does like who has the money, right? And where is that money going? And to what ends is that money being used for? So I see a lot of these advocacy groups talking about like, you know, like I said, giving minors hormone blockers. That used to be unthinkable. I think that was a normal opinion to have back in the day that you shouldn't give minors hormone blockers. Am I right about that?
Well, we've been giving minors hormone blockers for several things. The science of just trying to regulate puberty has also just been a thing forever. Bone density, the reason why hormone blockers have just kind of become more of an issue now is because of people using it in around high school, middle school age. But they're not untested. They're not anything crazy new, right? We've had them for other things, and yes, they do
But
have their
is
side
that
effects. I'm not going to say they're like 100% safe. I'm not,
yeah, yeah. But
insane.
is that not a more recent phenomenon? Because I think that only several years ago you could have asked the most liberal person you can find, like, hey, do you think we should give minors these hormones or whatever? And they would have been like, what? Are you crazy? But nowadays, if you like, it could be even seen as like a bigoted opinion to hold if you say no. I don't think anybody under 18 should have access to that.
Well, it depends. Uh, a lot of people who've been giving hormone blockers in like let's say 1997, they were given it because they were like, oh, uh, your your family's like, you're projected to be really tall really quickly, and that could be bad for your skin and all of that. Let's put you on these hormone blockers. That way, have a more even growth.
Well, that could have been the wrong. I mean, see, but the consequences could have even outweighed the positives even in that scenario, right? But but this is like mainly for, I believe, like cosmetic purposes, right? Essentially,
Yeah,
because that's
I mean, more or less it can be, but yeah, that's why it's more or less left up to uh, medical professionals to do this, which for the most part it has. However, it's become such a politicized issue to where medical professionals who are just prescribing hormone blockers for just most menial things are now just having their careers ruined. It's in a lot of similar ways of like abortions and all of that, to where the politicization of the medical industry is just it's a topic.
right. So,
But
but
no,
see,
I see.
I don't trust big pharma, right? So that's kind of like where I'm
Well, this
coming
is
from.
not big pharma. This is like family doctors, right? These are
Yeah. Well,
pediatricians.
yeah, no, but like, where did there's somebody out there supplying them with like the HRT and the testosterone and all that type of shit, right? So
I mean, yeah, but then that can just become a larger issue with just capitalism within medical society, and should the state own the means of production for medicine and all of that,
well, I
which
think that there's a big enough. I mean, there's like a growing industry for that type of stuff with the rise of people who identify that way. So I think that they're trying to cash in, and they're also trying to promote it because the more customers you have, the better for your business. So that's why you're seeing the rise of people identifying as transgender. And I think part of the way they do that is through like movies and TV and other ways of propaganda to like control your mind, basically.
yeah, but trans rates haven't just like spiked all of a sudden. There's just more of an
Well,
acceptance of them.
yeah. Well, in what way are they legally? Because I believe it's illegal to discriminate against somebody for that reason anyway. So it's like, what rights are we talking about here?
Well, it's actually not illegal to discriminate on certain things. Trans people do not have to. You can be discriminated for getting a job for being trans and for getting housing for being trans. Not to mention, I'm of the opinion that the right to happiness and just a good life that would give you happiness is a fundamental human right. To where I just would do that, but I can stay on
Yeah.
the I can talk about trans people just not getting jobs, with the biggest, most well-known case of that being that they're not allowed in the army.
Okay. Well, see, I have a different perspective on the whole army thing. Uh, my perspective is that I don't think that they. I mean, I think the less people allowed into the army is better for like whatever reason, right?
I mean,
And
fair based.
yeah, well, because like from my perspective, it's like more of like a utilitarian thing because like I don't agree with like the way that the U.S. Army is being used around the world. So I think okay, if they want to make it so that it's if they want to like shoot themselves in the foot, basically from their own perspective and not and allow less people in, that's I mean that's fine by me. I don't care about that.
I mean, that's still fair, but it is still like a fundamental rights issue that a federal job is being withheld from a certain percentage of the population,
I know, but
however
that ain't my
small.
responsibility. Yeah, that's not my responsibility though, because like I said, like I'm against the U.S. military doing what it does. So it's like
Okay,
I'm
but
not gonna I'm
okay,
not gonna be the one to stand up for them for on that one.
okay, but what if they just want to work at a just a normal office job? You know,
All right, if that's the case,
in
then
several
sure.
states, then it's illegal for members of the LGBT to have a job in offices, private business. It's all okay for them to be discriminated against.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, in that case, yeah, I don't agree with that. Like, I don't think that's right. Some people might disagree with me. They might be like, "Oh, that's super cool." Like, yeah, but that's not how I am. I'm not a hateful person.
Okay,
So,
so on private, we can agree that it's bad, but on federal, let's say it's not even the army. Let's just say it's just being like an intern at Congress or something, being like a receptionist.
well, nowadays you get points for that if you're like of the LGBT, I believe.
Yeah, but we've already, they're already cut from a certain sector of a federal job. What's stopping
Hmm.
it from happening? Like, not just to make a slippery slope, but they already do, just based on not being in the army, have less rights as the, average American, as the non LGBT person.
Hey, join the club, man. I got less rights because I'm a man nowadays in today's society. So it's like, in a way, like I think like straight men are kind of like the transgenders of yesteryear in certain respects. But
You mind telling me how?
well, because like look at it this way, like nowadays, all the media, like if you turn on Netflix, right? Like what's gonna be the see? I don't even watch TV anymore. But the last time I turned on Netflix, they had a show called Dear White People, or like they would have like stuff. They have like other shows where
Man,
like oh
it's been a while since you watched Netflix. I
yeah,
remember
man,
that shit.
yeah, I stuck to my guns. I was like, I'm not watching television anymore because like it's just brainwashing people. So I stopped watching TV that long ago. But yeah, like the whole message like back then was like, oh, white men suck, blah blah blah. So okay, well you
Uh,
don't need me then.
I mean, I watched that show when it came out, and back when I was in my whole anti SJW phase, back when I was still a conservative MAGA guy, and I rewatched it. I want to say like last year, and yeah, I honestly think that there is something. It's annoying and preachy, like don't get me wrong, but honestly, what they
Yeah,
say does have some merit to it. It's not just like white men are evil. It's just that the system disproportionately affects non-white people.
but see, why does it have to be like that? Like, why can't it just be like, okay, everybody's getting fucked over by the government or like big corporations or whatever, and so we gotta unify. But nowadays, it's like, oh, it's like they talk about like privilege or this and that, and it's just like more division. So it doesn't really seem like it's not like a unifying message. It's not you're not gonna win if you're like if your message is like, oh, I'm more oppressed than you, so I deserve like X, Y, and Z to accommodate me.
I will say, I admit that the left does have a branding issue. Like Black Lives Matter, white privilege, feminism, like all of these words just kind of evoke a response that's just more defensive than anything.
Yeah, and that
Like,
stuff is like That stuff is like musty and old now because like people are. I think people got tired of it too. Like
but
even the people that kind of supported it. That's why you never hear about that stuff anymore.
But
You
at the
notice
same
that?
time, I was gonna say it's bad branding, but their messages are good. Like the whole message to white privilege, it at first it does sound like you're getting something that other races aren't getting. That you have a better life, all of this because you're white. And yeah, it is kind of true, but it's more of less of you're getting something extra. Is that it's more of they're getting something less. You
I
know,
get I understand I understand the framing, but I reject it. So that's the difference. I just don't think that it's accurate.
okay. Well, if you want to talk about white privilege as being, straight white male, I guess we can go on to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I identify as a Slavic male, so I think I get some minority points,
You get some
but
minority points. I'll give you this. I'll give you them from the Soros bag.
Okay, cool. So, but anyway, like I was gonna say, the whole concept of privilege, I just don't think is very useful to anybody. Because like, what do you gain from that? Like, you're telling people like, oh, you have to bow down before me because your life is easier. And it's like, well, I don't. It's like you don't even know that person. How do you know what their life is like? Like I remember like some lady like wrote a serious op-ed about how like women actually have it worse than like homeless men or something. It was like the dumbest shit I ever heard.
Yeah, I remember that Jezebel article.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, crazies aside, the whole white privilege thing, like I said, is less to do with just like you, you know, your life is great because mine is bad. It's just more of big, broader societal issues, and it's more of just a way to just have a quippy response to any of that, and it's just really antagonistic, and I disagree. But like I said, the message is, I agree. As white people or white passing people, they're way less likely to be, pulled over for, you know, certain crimes in broad daylight, like speeding and all of that. They're way less likely to just be berated, just be hate crimed against, things like that. Like the people who get the most hate crimes towards them by, per capita would be black trans women. They are
Well, like
disproportionately
what
affected.
percentage? What percentage of the population
No, no,
are
no.
black
Per
trans?
capita. Per capita.
Oh,
Meaning like out of 100.
okay. But as far as I understand it, that's like a very specific subsect of the population. Like, how many people are we even talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
but still,
it can't be
if
more
you,
than like a few thousand, you know?
but regardless, that's still an issue.
I know, but this is a country of like 300 something odd million people. Like, why are we even like zeroing in? Like, see, the solution to all of that, like, right? This is how you even like, you can fix problems like that if you focus on an even larger group of people, right? So that's why I never understood like the whole BLM thing, which I'm not really a supporter of, but like, say if I like, let's say I was like a full on BLM extremist, right? Like, even just from that perspective, wouldn't it make more sense to just talk about black people as a whole rather than like, oh, black trans women or something?
Well, yeah, and that's what BLM is for. I mean, there like the beautiful thing with intersectionality now is that you don't have to focus on one thing. You don't have to focus on just black trans women. You can also focus on black people and women and
I
trans
know,
people.
but that's not
And
how that's not how the black community sees it, because I know a lot of them are kind of mad about that stuff.
well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, in America, black people do tend to be more anti-LGBT, but they also tend to be more religious, which kind of can be a correlation. But still, if we, like I said, the beauty of intersectionality is you can just you can be part of one or pro one thing, pro two things, pro everything.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know about the fact that black and Hispanic communities are actually less woke than white people. Actually, believe it or not,
Yeah,
a
no,
lot of
I
people are.
tend
Yeah,
it's tends to mainly be due to religion. Like like Asian people tend to be more on average more woke than white people, but I also tend to be less religious on average.
oh, really? I didn't even know that statistic. I just thought that everybody. My impression was that like the people that are like the biggest like SJW types are mostly white people. Actually,
No, it actually it's just it tends to follow religion. This depending on certain things, like LGBT issues. Religion seems to be the biggest factor out of it to whether you're going to be accepting or not. Less religious communities tend to be more accepting, while more religious tend to not be. Uh,
yeah. But see, what does that tell you though? Because like, see, when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so is it just the fact that like most people kind of like no matter what their culture is, they kind of have a set of norms and they understand like okay, this is what works for us. For some reason, like white people, especially like liberal white people, they have an issue with like pushing the boundaries. You see what
but
I'm
does
saying?
it
Like
work for them though? That's
they're
the
this,
issue. If people are being harmed, then that is an issue. If they're being harmed for just something that they are inherently, that is wrong. That's like the rest of the country just looking at like the Jim Crow segregated South and just like, it works for them. It's not really a great, mindset to be in.
don't think that's a good example though, because that's a clear case where like people's, just basic sense of their basic freedom is just like non-existent, right? In the Jim Crow South, like I just don't see how that's applicable to something like maybe, you know, on the level of like LGBT acceptance across the board, right? And I don't mean just like, oh, like, LGBT people can't be participants in the workplace or whatever. Like that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying like as far as like pushing the ideology onto people, I think that's a clear case in which boundaries are being pushed, and it's not like on a natural uh, kind of level. It's more of like It's like artificial.
Well, that's what people believed back then too. Like that's what pro-segregationists believed. They thought that being integrated would cause the eventual disappearance of the white race because of just race mixing. They thought that a lot of Marxists and communists were funding a lot of these leaders, like Martin Luther King. Though there was like papers just constantly being written about the bus rides going through the South about how they were funded by these big billionaires who just wanted the Southern way of life to disappear.
Right. No, I understand that. Yeah, but see, the difference is though is that like I think like back then you mentioned like the communists or whatever, like they were more about like the workers stuff, but we have like what we have nowadays are like the neo-Marxists, which are more so about like I said, like pushing boundaries on a social level. They're not even really about economics. Even the neo-Marxists are like all about like like I said, like challenging basically all social conventions. It, to We don't even know to what ends, because like I think it's just like a exercise in like full blown anarchy, basically.
Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of more contemporary left leaning stuff now tends to fall more anarchistic than back in the day. But it's just always been the thing that just any form of like inclusion was always immediately assumed to be communist, and still to this day. And yeah, most stuff about communism back in the day was less about economics. Like like I just said, a lot of the race mixing was like, here's why we need to be anti-communist because they'll desegregate your South. There was
Right,
stuff
but no,
like
yeah, I get that, yeah, but
because
I guess
people would not call FDR a socialist. You know,
right. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to like
no, you're fine. You're fine.
get a sidetrack. Let's see, but I'm basically saying is that there is this is what I believe. Not everybody believes this, which is okay, but I believe there's an agenda afoot that's trying to feminize, the black man and destroy their community. But they're also trying to like, just do that to everybody's community, not just them. Because if you listen to the words of like Louis Farrakhan, for example, he like breaks it down and explains it pretty succinctly as far as like what that agenda is doing to like the black population, for example. So it's not just about like white people for me. See, I'm inclusive in how I'm against the woke agenda. Like I want to unite with everybody against it.
Yeah, but still, just because they're saying it's okay for some people to be feminine doesn't mean that you should be also feminine. I mean, that's just a very defensive mindset. If that's how you see it, that's one thing. I don't see it like that. I see it as just the acceptance of other people doesn't really phase my life at all. If more and more people want to be, want to follow that life, sure, go ahead. I'm still going to be traditionally masculine. I'm still going to like go out in the woods. I'm going to hunt and farm and lift weights and shoot guns and all that. If more people want to go get mani pedis, why the fuck do I care?
Well, see, okay,
If I
that's a good
become the
question, right?
minority, why do I care?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Okay, see, I understand your question. Well, first of all, if non-LGBT people become the minority, then that's the end of the human race. So I don't even think that's going to happen. But if it did, that would spell the end. But secondly, right, your question of okay, why should I care if people are doing something that I don't think affects me in the immediate term? Well, the answer to that is the fact that it actually does affect you because society is getting reorganized in order to cater to certain sensibilities. Now, are they going to make it illegal to have, like you said, like hunting or whatever? Well, maybe. I mean, they're trying to take away guns as is, right? So maybe eating meat will be the next thing, and they're going to be making you eat bugs, and you're going to be like eating a cricket, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember talking to that guy on Discord, and he was just telling me all about this, but I didn't listen. And at that point, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, but then that's at the base of that argument is it's just like, well, I won't be on top, then that means I'm on the bottom. When no, that's not necessarily the case. Like a vegan restaurant opening in, opening up in downtown doesn't mean all of a sudden everything is going to start being vegan. It just means that hey, now vegans get a place to eat. Everything is not all of a sudden if someone's on top, someone's on bottom. That's what I'm
No, but
saying.
see, that's how. No, see, I disagree though, because I think that like if there's enough of a grievance against a certain section of the population, then you're gonna see like a spike in like things like hate crimes or other stuff like that. Basically,
Yeah, but
is what
who's
I'm
saying
saying.
there's a grievance by just allowing trans people to get jobs equally like everyone else? Who's to say there's a
But
grievance by just letting trans people just kind of do what they want, what they've been asking? You
well,
know?
they're more or less already allowed to do all those things. I don't think that there's a big hurdle as far as that goes. I think the I'm not really sure what's on the agenda for them nowadays because I think they basically achieved everything that they wanted to anyway.
Okay, but I mean, clearly they haven't if they can't get the jobs. But regardless, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Fuck. Anyways, no, regardless, it's just not everyone's going to be on top and everyone's going to be on the bottom, is what I'm saying. I really forgot what I was about to say. I'm
There's
sorry.
always going to be an underclass in society, and I think that the way that they're trying to reorganize it right now, it's going to be like, you know, the non-wokes are going to be at the bottom basically, and they're going to do that with like how they've been basically treating anybody who's like supportive of Donald Trump or like, I mean, people get fired just for like saying, "Oh, I like Trump," like that's like a fireable offense at some places.
Yeah, but I disagree that there's always going to be an underclass. I mean, it's it's one thing you get to choose your political opinions, right? You don't get to
Yeah.
choose your race, your identity, all of that.
Well, see, I might disagree with that because I think that like
I mean,
some
I know
people are.
that's where it was going to lead, but I'm still going to say like let's just go off the basis of just like people are just gay. They are just gay, you know? They just like what
Some
they
of them.
like, you know? Uh why are they not allowed to hold like a job at a Miss Kelly Furniture Company in Tupelo, Mississippi?
Well, to be clear, that's not just not my issue. Like the issue is not whether or not I think they should be allowed to do all the same things that non-LGBT people do. I think the opposite. Like, okay, if they want to be part of society, like why should we not allow that, right? I think the issue is more so along the lines of why are we changing basic truths and chat? Like, why are we telling people like, okay, like everything you thought about like your community and your sense of purpose, all that type of stuff. That's all wrong, actually. And a woman is no longer just like what you thought a woman is. Now it's like, or just gender in general. It's like, oh, it's just whatever you want it to be. But that's just not how reality is. Like, I can't say like, I can't just spend 30 years as a man and then tomorrow say, okay, well, you know what? Now I'm a woman, and then but then everybody is expected to treat that seriously. Like, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, okay, but like I said, several societies throughout history have done that. So
But the examples that you used were not at the scale of the way it's being done now, and that was more like I said, like
but
you
I
could you
mean,
could you could
like
argue that.
India, like pre-colonial India had several nations that had stuff like that. If a whole society believes it, what does it matter if the numbers?
I don't think that any society in human history has ever believed the type of stuff that they're promoting about gender, like today. I don't think that has never been a normative view in any culture across human history. Like I can't think of one. And I know about the examples that you used, but like I said, those are very like I mean even amongst native tribes, those were like a minority. Those are minority views. Those views did not define what it meant to be a Native American, for example, no
I mean,
matter
they didn't
which tribe.
define being a Native American. However, to say that it's not, yes, it didn't define all of Native American nations within America. However, it defined most of Mesoamerica. It defined a lot of the Andean culture, a lot of Eastern America, Granted,
Uh,
those are the populations that have kind of been most colonialized, but they were also the major civilizations of the land. You had the
well,
Mississippian
maybe some.
cultures
Well,
and
we'll
the.
see. Let's see.
Go
You
ahead.
said those are the places they got colonized, right? So maybe this, the conquistadors brought some of the fruitcake stuff with them. I'm not sure. Like, uh,
Well, this
that could
stuff
be.
was written before that. You know.
Well, I'm just saying that we should investigate that maybe more closely because that could be something worthy of reviewing. But
Okay,
my
but
point
even if
is,
the conquistadors brought that, that's still evidence of that being part of a larger society. Now, as a way to show that it was something in the Native Americans, uh, it was writings within Mayan culture, within a lot of Mesoamerican culture, and those people are still here today. A lot of times, still
well,
practicing like that.
I mean, keep in mind, like I'm just kind of taking you at your word for some of this stuff because I have not actually like looked too far deeply into like the as like what most of the native tribes were all about. So I'm just taking your word at that. Like I mean, I might have to do some investigation later because some of the stuff, like as far as I know, the stuff that I've heard about that does not sound very convincing. Uh, and I think that, like I said earlier, like we are sort of imposing what we understand now, like what we are being told nowadays. We're like imposing that onto these cultures that were around for however many thousands of years on the American continent before the Europeans came or whatever. Like I don't know what they were all about. I just don't think perhaps it's fair to kind of lump that in with like the current agenda that's going on nowadays with like the whole LGBT thing.
I mean, that's all historical studies are. We only have a frame of reference for the present, and we impose that on the past. That's
I
just
know,
what
but I don't think that's the accurate way
I mean. It's not
of
accurate, but it's
understanding.
the only way we can do it. We only ever know our one frame of reference
But why is that the example that people like to choose? Like, oh, the whole two spirit thing. Like, you see, like
because
it's
it's
always
it's mainly because it's within America. This is something that is native here. I'm pretty sure in India, they use their examples, stuff like that. So might
okay,
as well just use what's already in your area, what's already been exposed to you.
okay. But I don't think that it's like a see. We're talking okay, but nowadays we're talking about chemical alterations, cosmetic surgery, like directly like intervening into in human biology, and not only that, but we're also talking about like psyching out the population to like they now the majority has to conform to the minority view, right?
Okay, but as cosmetic things go, we've constantly always been doing cosmetic surgeries. The only reason why they're happening more now is because less people are just dying now and more people are getting it.
Yeah,
But
there's
we've
also an
always done
industry
like,
for it.
yeah, but there's always been an industry for it. As long as there's been
Yeah,
like an industry for anything, that's been one of it.
yeah,
So,
but see, but it's the surgical procedures plus the pharmaceuticals that are now involved. So you see what we're talking about here. We're talking about millions of dollars, right? That are at stake here. Because and how do you keep that going? Well, you keep promoting it, and you keep telling you keep telling everybody like, yeah, man, like if you want to be a woman, like we'll help you out. We're gonna cut your dick inside out. We're gonna give you these pills, and
okay,
you're
but
gonna
if you
be
don't
a
want to, just don't do it. I mean, it seems.
well, yeah, clearly, but I'm just saying that, like, but see, it's not that simple because, like, when it came to the opioid epidemic, right? What was happening? These companies, they're making it easier for doctors to write prescriptions to dole out opiates, right? And because, the insurance companies are now paying the pharmaceutical companies to dole out all these opioids that they're cranking out, right? And it's the same thing going on with this whole, like, you know, uh, transgender thing with like the hormone blockers or the testosterone or or even the surgeries, which is a whole industry in its own right.
But you're negating one thing. I mean, with the whole opioid epidemic, it's a little bit more complex than that. But at the bottom, end of the line of the day, opioids feel good. Surgery and hormone blockers don't. It's an intensive experience that most people and most trans people will not go through. They will not do gender reassignment surgeries. Most of them will just put on, different clothes and get a different haircut. and present as a woman in just the most basic means necessary, because it's just such a struggle and it's so expensive to go through all of these surgeries and get all these
Yeah.
hormones and all of that.
Well, I see one of the people in your chat. See, like this is the example that I like to use. Like a lot of these like transgender activist types, like he's like saying all this stuff like, oh, athletes take hormone blockers too. You're gonna lose your mind over that too. It's like, well, no, because athletes do not they're not representative of like, they're engaged in a type of activity where they need that stuff, because nobody wants to watch non-juiced up athletes of any sort, no matter what it is. You could be like, you know javelin throwing or basketball. Like, I want to see these people on the sauce, right? Because they're like, you want to see them push to their utmost excellence, right? But when it comes to the transgender thing, I'm not really seeing the excellence, right? What I'm seeing is a type of you know, degradation of the soul and the body.
But
Now,
how is it a degradation if they feel more at ease with themselves, more at peace? You know,
well, but see
not
this,
not to mention the whole. Here's why I disagree with the whole. A certain population, all of this shouldn't have access to that. What about something like insulin? Only, let's say hypothetically, diabetes was something that only 0.03% of the population ever experienced. Should there be commercials on TV to promote insulin?
that's a good question. I would say that the best solution when it comes to any sort of medical issue is what? Okay, have you ever heard of this? And now, don't laugh, but you do know that prayer is the original wireless connection, right?
I mean, I've heard that, yes.
There you go. So that's your direct lifeline to God. And so if you want to be cured of any ailment, you gotta get on your knees, and you gotta say your prayers, basically, because God's gonna help you. If you are of a just cause in mind, basically.
Okay, but here, I'm also Christian, and I don't necessarily believe that. I believe God gives us the tools. He's very indirect with the ways He helps us. Because I can tell you countless times in my life where I've, been on that bed right behind me with the prayer book that's on that nightstand right there, where I'm just, shitty day. I'm calling out for help and all of that. And half the time I'm thinking it's going to come down with, God just directly doing it. However,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll see a sign like the wording in the book, something just clicks in my head, and I just remember something I saw earlier that day, and I go to do, that. Like, say I'm having like financial trouble, all of that, like with my school and all of that. Say I'm just like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, and I read the passage in the book, and then all of a sudden, it somehow the wording just reminds me of this jingle I heard from this scholarship commercial I saw on a YouTube video, and I'm like, oh, dude, I remember that from like 3 weeks ago before I started having this trouble. Then I get to go that. That's how I believe God interacts. Very indirect in a way that,
Right. Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. That's actually true. But I think that sometimes he does work in mysterious ways, so that I guess that could be a factor. But like I said, like I don't like when it comes to the insulin question. I mean, I guess if it's life or death, you should probably take the insulin, right?
there we go, if it's life or death. Why do trans people who had, very supportive parents and, just people around them, not necessarily parents, but that was how the study was done. But it was trans people who were allowed to have care and who had a supportive group. They had way less suicidal thoughts than, you know non-trans teens. Meanwhile, trans teens, the whole suicide issue for them was mainly not allowing to have care and expression and having a non-supportive group. They had a much higher rate than both. And
Yeah.
mind
Well,
you,
see,
I'm saying this, I'm repeating this. The trans people with a supportive group had lower suicide rates than non-trans teens, non-trans people. Meaning just the support they were getting, and the allowance to have expression and to get this care brought down their suicide rates so far down that non-trans people are way more likely to commit suicide.
right, but you know why that is though? It's because of the fact that there's something within them that I think they're clearly troubled, right? And so I think a lot of the times what happens is that maybe they're gay, right? And instead of but they can't accept that, so like they're being told like, oh, like you're actually transgender or something, and they kind of like go along with that when the real issue is that they're afraid of coming to terms with their sexuality. And so what happens is that they internalize a lot of that negative energy that they're getting, and they're becoming how should I say, they lash out at everybody else. And so I think that it first has to start before we say, okay, we're going to give you all these drugs and we're going to humor you with this whole thing. Maybe we need to figure out like what's going on with that person before we say, you know what, you are actually not a guy, you're a woman in a guy's body. I think we should help them out so that they can become so their lives, so they can improve their own lives basically.
I mean, I agree
Until
with
you
you. I do think therapy is a God given human right, and we should all get it for free. But also, yeah, a gender, you aren't going to get just, you know, hormone blockers or be allowed to like transition and all of that unless you have like a gender dysphoria diagnosis in like most cases. And
yeah.
that could take years. That could take just actual years.
Well, however long it takes, because people need. I mean, there's sometimes people are schizophrenics and that they're locked up for like several years and they get out and they're a okay. So it just depends on the person. But I think that when you are talking about this whole transgender thing, right? So what I mean, really, what's the issue? Like, what does it come down to where we're even having this debate in the first place, right? Why are we talking about this? I think a large part of it has to do. I think that it's a good topic to divide people on, basically. But on the flip side of that, there is a certain relevancy as far as the cultural debate goes. So I don't think it's only just a distraction to you know get people focused off of the most important things. I think that's only part of it because I think that actually like with the way that it's being used, they've now willed it. They've willed the actual issue into existence, even though it may not have truly existed before. And I mean, I don't really remember people talking about this kind of stuff like even like 5 or well, maybe like say 10 years ago. This is not like a topic of cultural discussion. So by artificially cultivating it, they've actually even like managed to make a real thing out of it.
Okay, but this
Which
artificial cultivation, sorry to just cut you off, but back in like 1890, people thought, you know, the whole anti-segregationist thing, they were like, this just kind of came out of nowhere.
well,
What's
that's not
what's
true.
the
There
real
was always
difference?
there was always abolitionists
No, 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 no,
dating
not
back.
not I'm talking about segregationists. Because back when it was just a thing of slavery, I mean, I'm sure there was at least one person in history, but for the most part, most of the discussion was just freeing the slaves. But after that, then the Jim Crow era came in, and segregation was, now the law of the land. Now it
Yeah, but even
turned
even
from
from
slavery to all of a sudden integration.
I would
So
argue that even just by looking at the history of America's founding, you could see that slavery's days were already numbered. I think that that was just an inevitable consequence of like the motion of history that it was going to go out the window anyway. I mean, I think that was clear from the the inception, the founding of the nation with the Constitution and everything. We could see that's the direction we were going to go in. I
I
think
mean,
if
I
you
can argue on that one because I am a huge history nerd, but my main talking point is just the fact that as history goes on, we see new issues arise to where we didn't even, we didn't see them back then because what we saw back then was just kind of normal. History is going to constantly be changing. For most of human history, slavery was normal. However, all of a sudden, that was the big hot topic issue. Then once
yeah.
we started seeing slavery as bad, we started to focus on segregation. Well, now that came out of nowhere, and that's just kind of evidence to show that stuff is just kind of always changing.
Well, see, I don't agree that the topic of segregation and the transgender stuff. I don't see a one-to-one comparison with those things at all. To be honest with you, but
Well, I mean, let's look at it as like the broader LGBT issue. First, people were just like, All right, let's not kill gay people. All right, cool, cool. Uh, let's let them marry. All right, all right, cool. Uh, let's not kill trans people. Sick. You know, it's just.
Okay, but so hold on a second. Who the hell was? Nobody was just going around killing trans people all the time. Before several years ago. That's not true.
I mean, do you really want to have this discussion of like how religious fundamentalists have just been killing members of the LGBT community? It's most
I mean,
prevalent now within you know, looking at like Islamic countries, but it absolutely also happened in Western countries. The only reason why
oh,
we don't talk about it as much now is because within most of Western society, and by Western society I mean just the Americas, it wasn't written down. It was usually lynch mobs, you know.
is that? I don't know if that's actually a thing in Islamic society. I'm not
Uh,
entirely sure, but maybe. I mean, it could be true. I don't know. Well, I mean, I think that you'll find less tolerance for that just in Eastern cultures in general, because like I guess they are a bit more like
they do tend to be a little bit more conservative, yeah.
yeah. Well, I don't like using that word though, because like it just like I feel
Well,
like just
Japan and China and Korea do.
well, okay,
And
conservative or traditional or
so
however you want to call it, but it's just like you know why why is it that we only us in the West we have this issue? Is it just because we're so much more enlightened than everybody else that we're like all of a sudden having these types of cultural conversations? How come none of this? People in the East don't really talk about this kind of stuff because they have a basic understand. Like they don't feel the need to even question it. Is what I'm saying.
it still happens in the East. I mean, that's true, but the whole reason why it's taking more place in the West now, because as history has progressed, the West since the Enlightenment has been more of the birthplace of progressivism.
So
Back in
you
the
just think that
day,
like
it was
Westerners are just that much smarter than everybody else.
no, it's more of just the momentum from history because for most of human history, it was the Middle East and the Levant and the Mediterranean level era societies in the Middle East and Africa that were the more progressive. For most of history, those were the more progressive societies. However, you know, stuff changes, stuff shifts, stuff progresses.
See,
It just
I would
happens.
disagree. I think that the East is having its own type of renaissance lately, actually, and I think that the West is on the decline, and we're witnessing our decline economically and socially. And so, we're gonna go. We're like the Roman Empire on its way out, right? And so we're gonna, we see like the rise of like, you know, all this weird stuff. But in the East, they're chilling because they're like, we're about to have like, we're not going to be tied to the U.S. dollar anymore. We got our families, we got our traditional
Okay, but
culture. Like,
let me ask you this: which countries are on the rise? Is it China, Japan, South Korea? Because Japan and South Korea have been seeing sharp declines in their economy ever since the
in
80s.
between out of those three, it would be
Well,
China, yes.
Japan has been in the 80s. Korea has been more recent.
Yeah, but
But
see, but think
also,
about yeah, but see,
I wanted you to.
South Korea and Japan are degenerate like Western satellite states, right?
Okay, but yeah,
Post
here's what
World
I
War
wanted you
II.
to say China for a reason. The reason why is China seeing an economic boom, even if there is that? Is it because,
Because they're not fucking with the central banking system like the U.S. is.
or is it because they've opened up a billion new markets within Africa and Southeast Asia recently, within the
And
last 20 years?
I don't know. They did some shit. I'm not an economist, but yeah, I guess they've been kind of on the up and up.
Yeah, most of China's boom is because they're appearing in markets where America is leaving. It's less to do with we're becoming just so degenerate that our economy's failing, and more of just the fact that for some reason America just wants to be so isolationist
Oh,
again
our
that we're.
shit. Nah, our shit's failing, man. Like we have
But
crazy
why? Why is
inflation.
our
Like
shit failing? And if
because
it's
we got crazy inflation and like
why is
fucking
inflation? Why is inflation?
These Biden gas prices, man. It's fucking nuts.
Oh, gas price! Don't get me started on that. But
I would argue that we're actually not becoming more isolationist because recently, like for instance in Somalia, the U.S. has been having a higher level of involvement there. We're still engaged in like drone strike campaigns across like the
That's
the
military.
African
We're talking
continent.
about
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
economy.
But I'm saying, well, that ties into the economy, right? Because like, why, well, why are we in Somalia, for example? We're just there to have fun. No, there's a certain strait there, for instance, where you transport goods and that type of thing, right? You have to have those shipping routes controlled by the U.S. So that all ties in together. But I'm saying, I guess my point is that we're not actually like. See, that was just the one aspect of what you said that I took issue with, because I actually think that the U.S. is starting to lash out more and only like stretching itself more and more across the globe in order to kind of cope with like its own decline.
Then why have we pulled out of Southeast Asia and most of Africa? Why are we not no longer fully supporting India like we used to?
Well, because
We why are we
India's
pulling
part
out
of
of
the.
European markets?
Yeah, yeah,
Why
I
are we
got you.
pulling out of Latin American markets? We're pulling out of a lot of markets in most continents. That's, you know,
Well, in the case of India, they just want to have like a better deal, right? So they had the whole BRICS thing going on. I don't know if you've heard of that,
no, I
but
do
so
know
that
about the BRICS thing.
yeah, so they're just looking out for themselves, right? Like they just want a better deal for themselves. That's how every country should be, though. Like, right? Like we Americans, like we should want what's best for us, but maybe what's best for us means we stop fucking with the rest of the world. That should be like the basic position I think of anybody.
I mean,
That's
I
like
agree military wise, but economics wise, this is kind of a controversial opinion of mine amongst everyone. I think that we should always and constantly be the main competitor to China because China fucking sucks. I
well,
do not like
you're
them.
about you're about 30 years too late. Then you should go. You should get yourself a time machine because those industrial jobs that we started shipping away before and after even like NAFTA, like that stuff ain't gonna come back. So unless you rebuild an industrial base and you bring back manufacturing to the U.S., you're not gonna have shit. And you can't print. You can print as many trillions as you want. You're not gonna dig your way out of that hole.
It's called taxing the shit out of companies who go overseas,
You
which
can't have an economy that's just based solely on taxation, and you're gonna have to figure out a way.
it's an incentive to bring people back to America because
That
that's what we used to do. Any company
yeah,
that
but they're
used to
not
go
gonna.
off into South America, there was the Hershey's thing in like Cuba. We taxed the shit out of that just
Yeah,
to
but
try
see
to
that.
bring make sure that they stayed within America.
I
At the
think
end
what's
of
gonna happen in most of those cases, though, is that the companies will just they would rather just what do you call it? Well, they would just leave operating in the U.S. They would just bite that tax penalty, and you still have a shitty like you still have this like kind of economy that's based more on like speculation and credit than
yeah,
it
but
is
if they're
based on
getting
like
taxed
tangible
so
goods.
much for being outside of the country that that they would have just had more profit within America, why would they still be in the other country?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that one more time?
Basically, the reason why I'm saying we should tax them, just to fucking shit if they go outside of this country to, for their main operation or whatever,
Oh yeah, but
is
see,
that to make
they
it
would
more
just eat the tax.
profitable to
Yeah,
be in America than in the other countries. Meaning, if they came back, they
but I'm
would see
saying,
more profit within,
yeah, I
Ohio than China.
I understand the premise, but I'm saying that in reality, most of them will just choose to bite the tax. Like they don't care because
But they
they'll.
wouldn't because we used to do that, you
Yeah,
know?
but you're not going to get that back because it's all corrupt anyway, and the politicians are owned by the corporations, and the corporations like to do their business outside of the U.S. anyway, where it's cheaper to operate. They don't have to like pay competitive wages. Plus, you got you got this whole issue with like migrant labor and stuff like that. Like um, that's why like the Coke. Like I remember when your boy Bernie, he was like, "Oh, open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal, right?" And that was kind of before he sold out, and he sounded a little bit convincing. So I was like, okay, maybe this Bernie guy's not so bad. But then he like cucked out and everything. But his basic point was that like the whole open borders thing, like that that is helping drive that is contributing to driving down the wages of like middle class, uh,
But if you remember
blue
his
collar.
speech, open borders for who? He wasn't talking about immigrants. He was talking about corporations. He was talking about NAFTA specifically,
Yeah,
which,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but we fuck over both. Like, see, two people get fucked over in that exchange. Because see, you're when there's like when you have all this sort of cheap and easy labor that you're able to exploit using those workers visas. What happens also is that it's a bad deal for them because they're losing their own workforce in their native country. right? It's not a deal that works. It doesn't work out the best for either side, really.
Minimum wage across the board, citizen or non-citizen.
Minimum wage, but yeah, but see,
Minimum
okay,
wage
minimum
across
wage,
the board.
but you
Not
can't
just
live
for
off of, but you can't live off of minimum wage,
No, you
man. What do you
can't.
mean?
But then it evens out the playing field because now it's going to be cheaper to go with the domestic labor that's already here.
If you say so, I don't know about that. That doesn't sound right to me. But I'm not an
Well, because
economist,
then they
so
don't
it's
have to
like
bus in people, right?
they don't have to bus in people. Well, most of the people that are here that are, I guess you could say, that contribute to driving down the wages of American workers, those people are here on legal visas.
Yeah, legal visas, oftentimes comped by the company. Blueberry farms, just farm labor in general, is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
most migrant
It's not
workers go
really.
into.
Yeah,
However,
yeah.
they get to
It's
be
not so much
paid.
illegal immigration.
They get to be paid far less than their domestic counterparts, and that's because they get comped for their trips here. Most travel is just across the border. They get paid bus prices,
Well,
whatever.
we need to crack down on that, on legal immigration, not illegal. Well, we need to crack down on illegal immigration too, but there needs to be more talk about legal immigration. I think that's the big ticket issue.
Yeah, but illegal immigration, they're just not going to pay a minimum wage because they're like, hey, you're here illegally, so
Yeah, and
you
that's
get what
but
I
see,
take. You
yeah, but
get,
those people are being treated as slaves. That's even more incentive to like crack down on people exploiting illegal immigrant labor.
or we could give a minimum wage, and it's just going to get the companies like, huh, let's just hire who's here.
Okay, if you say so. I just don't think that the minimum wage is going to be worth much with the with the way things are going now. I don't think. I mean, I
Well,
don't know
it's not an amount issue. It's just you get paid no matter, you're getting paid the same amount. If you're the same skill set, you're getting that pay whether you were born here or born there. It's
Okay.
going to it's going to charge the company a lot more money to start bringing people over than just going with who's here already.
Well, I'll tell you what. How about this? We get some like eggheads to figure out the whole economics thing because that's not really like my whole bag. Like I'm not the expert. I think it was the Ayatollah Khomeini, who said, economics is like for the, that's like for those types of people, the fucking nerds and shit. Like you get them to figure that stuff out. The rest is, the rest falls into place. And so what I'm, why do I bring that up, right? Because like you said, I mean, you had some kind of beef with like China or something, right?
Oh, I do.
So yeah. Well, I don't really know why. Because like, see, they're China first, right? Now we should be America first. Now, what does that mean? Do we have to beef with China? No, we just have, we have our thing. They have their thing. So what happened? What happened the last 30 years? Well, America said we're gonna give you we're gonna export a lot of our manufacturing over to you. Okay, now why did America do that? Because we're so nice? No, it's because they wanted to cut down on paying American workers a good amount of money. Now, are China the bad guys because they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll take that deal"? Well, no, because basically our elites sold us out, and China said, "Well, that sucks for you guys, but this is what's in our best interest, and you guys are the ones giving us the deal, so we'll take the deal." And the Americans were, I mean, the American elites, not the American people, but the American elites are so stupid that they did that, and that's how you end up with the rise of, this. I mean, that's how you end up with this whole pushback that was bottling up for the last couple of decades. That's how we got Trump, because Trump was out there saying, "I'm going to bring back American jobs. We're going to get out of Afghanistan and Syria, and we're not going to be doing any of this nonsense that we do around the globe anymore." And that's kind of why I respect Trump. I think
Okay,
Trump has the right
I
idea.
hate to bring down the Trump balloon on this one, but Trump failed at every respect to do that. What he did
He
was,
doesn't.
what he did
Yeah.
was, in fact, export more jobs to China because he made it a lot more incentivizing to do that. Not only that, but he closed several markets down within Latin America, the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, and Africa, which allowed China to come in because, of course, a vacuum allows the next biggest contender to come in. Not to
Yeah,
mention
but you
that
know what? You
he
know
did
what
not
though?
pull out of Afghanistan. He sent more troops into Syria. Honestly, I do agree with the sending of the more troops in.
Nah, see, you're fucking up. See, where you're wrong though, where you're absolutely wrong is that despite the fact that maybe Trump didn't fulfill every promise he made, he at least seeded that idea into the American people. That's why you have so many conservatives nowadays who are actually more left wing than the left wingers. Now, what does that mean? Because you see in your head, you're like, "Oh, that's fucking crazy talk. How can the conservatives be more left wing than the left wingers?" I'll tell you how. because nowadays it's mostly conservatives who are actually like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be bombing all these countries. We should stick to America. And that is actually the most important thing that Trump did, was that he seeded those ideas into a large segment of the American population that would have never thought about those things had it not been for him.
I would disagree, mainly because you can say all these nice, pretty things, and yeah, I will admit that is important. However, you can't just say fuck China while also making their economy stronger. You can't say I'm pro American while, the average worker wage goes down. You can't say I'm pulling out of Afghanistan by sending more troops to Afghanistan. Just because the ideas are seeded doesn't mean it's going to be great.
Well, to be fair to Trump, I believe that when he wanted to pull out of Syria, for example, there was that dickhead named General Mattis, I believe, and he was like, "Oh, how dare Trump do this? I'm going to resign," and then he resigned. And then like people later on, it turned out, after the November election in 2020, there was people going on onto the news network saying, "Yeah, we work for." It was like people at the intelligence agencies, or no, I'm sorry, they were like in the military, and they were like, "Yeah, Trump told us to withdraw troops, so we just lied to him and said we were doing it, but then we didn't do it." Like shit like that, right? So they were like, actually, the real coup took place uh, before January 6th, when they refused to take the president's orders to withdraw troops from
I know
Syria.
what you're talking about, but the troops were withdrawn. What wasn't withdrawn were mercenaries, and the government does not control mercenaries. So Blackwater was still there. And even though they're mercenaries, and for some reason the US government likes to say that, oh, because we send in mercenaries, our hands are clean. No, they're still an American force, and generally, whenever a mercenary gets killed, we still see it as like, oh, our boy's dead, our boy's down, let's revenge his ass.
Well, see, I agree in the sense that like I think that whatever, it's like a mess over there. So the best thing we can do is leave completely, let Mr. Assad take care of things, and then I think that would be the best course of action for everybody. Like, because
I disagree.
well, he's a great. I think
For the
he's a
most part,
respectable leader. So
well, no, because then we get what we had in the 90s with Yugoslavia. We see ethnic genocides. I am a genocide not enjoyer. I don't like them. And I do believe it is our
oh, you're talking
moral.
about? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you.
And
When
that's
it
what's
comes to
happening in Syria.
when it comes to Yugoslavia, I actually agree with you. I think that the great genocide of Yugoslavia, when it came to NATO shelling residential neighborhoods, I do believe that that's another big reason why I'm against NATO. By the way, that's like a
No, I mean the fact that Serbia and Serbian fighters and so Serbian sympathizers were ethnically cleansing Bosnians. So we showed, Serbians to stop them, which it
yeah.
stopped
We
them.
showed them by murdering civilians by the thousands. I got
Well,
you. Yeah. See,
we did it with Nazi Germany, and all those civilians did get murdered. That was not our goal, and they were just straight up murdering women and children. We at least had the goal of let's bomb military facilities, with a few of our bombs missing. I'm not going to say that we were like ultimately pure and
yeah,
angelic.
yeah.
However,
You remind me of like George W. Bush. They used to, and Dick Cheney. They used to say stuff like that. I remember it on
except they
TV.
just lied. They lied
Uh,
about the WMD. Well, lie is a strong word because they did have weapons of mass destruction, the ones we gave them. But no, what I'm saying is sometimes it's good to stop genocide. I think World War II
You
was
don't
a
stop
good thing.
genocide. You don't stop a genocide by killing a shit ton of civilians. Number one, but number two, I would dispute the specifics of the charges of genocide, especially when it comes down to what happened in the former Yugoslavia. I don't actually buy all of the accounts of ethnic cleansing at face value. I think that what happened was, I mean, there was clearly a civil war taking place, and I think that there was probably excesses on each side of the conflict. But to say that any of that necessitated the type of intervention that NATO took, I think would be a huge mistake.
What
I
about
don't
World
think.
War II? What do you say about that? We
But
stopped
I
a
don't think.
genocide. We stopped a
Yeah,
genocide.
we didn't stop anything. America entered World War II very late. If anything, it was the Russians who
But it
were
doesn't
able to
matter.
be.
It doesn't matter. I'm not saying just America. I say like any developed non-war having country at the time has the moral obligation to stop a genocide when one is being done. Whether it was Russia, England, France, I don't care. Germany was committing a genocide. I think it should have been every single country against Germany on that one to stop it.
But that's not what. That's just not what happened. The Americans couldn't have cared less about the
I'm
Nazi
not talking
extermination
America.
camps.
I'm saying I'm using this as an example.
Oh, you're talking about things that
Countries
should be.
all
We
countries have the moral
should be.
obligation to stop genocides. Flat out.
I, but that's just not okay. When you say that though, I'm not sure what you have to go
I'm talking about
specific by
I'm talking
specific
about
cases, right?
I'm talking about World War II. I'm talking about us protecting the Kurds in Syria. I'm talking about us stopping Bosnians from just being erased.
How did we protect the Kurds in Syria by
By
giving
having an
them?
American soldier there, they were fired upon way less because people who they were fighting were terrified if they hit an American soldier that their organization would have been carpet bombed off the face of the earth.
Well, and it's funny that you
Which
mention
is
that because
true.
in the case of Syria, the Americans were funding multiple different Islamic jihadi proxy groups
I'm
for
not
that
saying
were.
funding. I'm saying just having a dude there,
Mhm.
just chilling. Because once Americans left, violence against the Kurds almost
Yeah, but
quadrupled.
The Syrian civil war was. I mean, the United States had a hand in fomenting that to begin with. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, no, counterintelligence and just funding of like terrorist groups. Yes, no, there is a long history of just failures on that for every country ever.
right.
But
So,
I'm not talking about
but it sounds like
counterintelligence and funding
yeah.
rebel wars. I'm talking about just having a dude in jorts, Crocs, an American flag T-shirt, just chilling, like in the area of whatever ethnic minority. Because if he dies, whoever killed him would be fucked. The
Yeah,
same way Kiki Morena got killed in Mexico during the cartel violence, that's why they didn't fuck with American citizens anymore, and they did a lot of the crimes in that area just stopped.
but see, what you're basically saying though is that like, oh yeah, America should have. After America helps foment the Syrian civil war, they should also occupy the northern region of the country. That just kind of, it's like, yeah, they
It's more
caused
of
the
it's
mess.
less of that and more of just genocide bad. We can afford to stop it. Let's stop it.
Well, see, I personally don't believe that that would have been the case, and I think that in the end, that never even happened. I mean, the Kurds entered into an alliance with Assad's government when they're fine at the end
And
of the
why does
day.
Assad's
So
government still fire upon many of them? Why did the Assadi government just stop when American soldiers arrived on the
I believe
scene?
that, as far as I understand it, the YPG are actually in full alliance with Assad's military. The second question I would have is why are you so? I've noticed this. I noticed this theme with American leftists. What is this big boner that you guys have for Kurdish nationalists to
I
begin
don't
with?
have a
Where
boner.
did
I don't know anything about them. I just think that an ethnic genocide is bad. I'm not anything like I don't know what their politics are. I don't know anything about, this, that, and the other. I don't know if they're a leftist group. I don't know if they're conservative. I just think that genocide is bad. Yes, probably most of the Jews who were killed in the Holocaust would have been homophobic as shit today. I don't care. I think that it
what?
was wrong for them to
where,
be
where
killed.
did where did that part come from? That's weird. I never heard
It's
anybody
more of
say
just
that.
less like I don't have to agree with them politically. They're not my allies and anything like that. I hate people dying. That's
But see, I don't think that anybody operates on the basis of like whether or not they think that genocide is like a positive or a
But
negative.
if you do
It's
nothing,
just a
you're in
weird
full
thing to
support.
say.
No, if you do nothing to stop it, you're in full support of it. Flat out.
Okay. But in the case of Yugoslavia, that's a very
If you didn't,
controversial. I
if you,
think that's a very controversial statement to say that uh, we needed to bomb the shit out of residential neighborhoods in Yugoslavia in order to stop an ethnic cleansing.
we
When I
needed to
think
bomb
that
the shit out of known military operations within Yugoslavia to stop ethnic genocide. Yes, it was a civil war, so yes, civilians were going to be harmed. But that's just the case with any war. With any fighting that's going to happen, most of the casualties are going to be civilians. I know that's just what's going to
yeah,
happen.
it's just
I'm
to me
saddened
that
by it, but
sounds
the
it sounds
ultimate end of it, the ultimate
yeah.
goal of it
You
is like if hundreds of families die, okay. If it saves millions of
I know.
families.
I've heard all the. You know why I'm saying I know because I've heard people say this before. Like, years ago during the Iraq War. The people on TV that were giving their full blown, unwavering support to George W. Bush were saying the same things that you're saying now verbatim. And then what happened? Oh, all of a sudden we found out that there were no WMDs. We found out this. It's just it's like if you start actually examining these particular events, you find out that the U.S. had never had any sort of humanitarian goals in mind. I mean,
But
this
why
was
is there so
simply
much written evidence about, you know, the genocides in Yugoslavia, Nazi Germany,
there was
Darfur,
so-called
just
there
genocide,
was
genocide here and there. Not to mention, there was written evidence of WMDs within Iraq, except we supplied them. That's how we know they were there. The
no,
whole
that's you're okay. Now you're mixing up events. I believe if you go back and you look at the testimony that was offered to the UN, would turn out to be complete bullshit. You know, with Colin Powell
no,
and
no,
all
no,
that
no.
stuff. I
I
mean,
was not done
if you look
talking.
at the testimony of various intelligence agencies across the globe, I mean, even MI6, and we know that the UK was allied with the US in its involvement in Iraq, but even their own intelligence agencies said that there was no conclusive evidence of any sort of WMDs found within Iraq. I mean, that's just a total lie.
Because no, there was WMDs within Iraq. We sold them to them during the
Then
Iran-Iraq
why
War in the
why were
80s.
you,
Hold
why
on.
were UN weapons inspectors never able to find a single thing?
Yeah,
Okay,
hold
so
on. I'm not done. Because they were dismantled. Throughout after Desert Storm, Iraq was told to dismantle their WMDs, and they did systematically. However,
exactly.
yes,
So and they sent weapons inspectors which confirmed that very the very thing that they claimed. So why is so how do you premise an illegal invasion and occupation which was started without congressional approval? How do you justify that then?
I don't justify what happened in Iraq because although
Exactly.
George
You
Bush
can't.
said that he wanted to do a moral good, the ultimate goal was to create an American-friendly state within within the Middle East, which was becoming increasingly hostile to the U.S. All we had was Israel, and at the time, we thought Israel was going to back out because they were increasingly turning more and more towards Europe and China. That's why. That's the real issue. There was no actual, you know, moralistic goal behind Iraq. No matter what war there is, people are going to say that we're the good guys because we're stopping this. People within Nazi Germany thought they were the good guys because they thought the Jews were coming down to ruin their way of life. Everyone thinks they're a good guy in the war. There's
Yeah, but
not.
see,
They will
I don't
come up
like
with
this. I don't
lies
like this.
to
I don't like this
justify
theme.
everything.
I don't like this theme that always pops up in any sort of political conversation when people bring up the Nazis as like this stand-in for like absolute evil or something. I just don't think it's very useful to do.
Well, because they are, they have been some of the most evil people within modern history.
I don't disagree. I just think it's like tasteless to always bring that up in any sort of debate about even unrelated topics. I
Because
notice a lot of
it's
people
the
do that.
only way, it's the one thing everyone's got a frame of reference for.
Yeah, but it's like it's like a cliche, right? There's even a name for it. I forget what it is.
It
There's like
is a
a
cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. If it's the one thing people got, universal just knowledge of, that's the case.
Yeah, but most people are dumb and shouldn't be concerned with politics to begin with, right?
I think everyone should be concerned with
Yeah, but some
politics.
people don't have the mental faculties for it.
I don't care. If politics affect your life, you need the right to know it.
Okay, let me ask you: do you
That's like
think
saying
that
people with Down syndrome shouldn't vote.
they probably shouldn't? I don't think they would have much interest in it to begin with. But
I think they should. I think they should get what they want. They should be able to
okay,
voice their opinion for how their life should go.
okay. I mean, that's fine, whatever. But barring people with like cognitive disabilities, do you think that stupid people should be allowed to vote?
Well, the Republican Party exists. Ha! No, but yes, I think that everyone's got should be educated and have the right to educate themselves on politics. Whether I
Oh, by the
disagree
way,
with it or
somebody
not.
somebody in chat said it. Godwin's law. That's what I was thinking of.
Godwin's, yeah, Nazis just come up. It's inevitable. Yeah, I don't care. People get mad that Nazis always come up. I do not give a shit. They can stay mad. But
Okay, so you think that stupid people should be allowed to vote?
I think they should have the right to educate themselves. Who's to decide what's stupid and what's not? If you failed math, should you not be able to vote? No.
Probably not.
I think you should.
So
You may just not.
you don't think that there should be any litmus test for participating in voting?
No, politics affects you and your life. You have the right to try to push the momentum of the society around you to benefit your life. That is
See,
a
I
right.
disagree. I think if you're too dumb to vote, that's like a liability because you got all these like stupid people voting for shit that like,
But that's
you know,
that's assuming that you're not the stupid one.
well,
If
I'm
you
not
were
because I
if
no,
you
I mean
were
I'm clearly not the stupid one though because like I'm
you
not a
could
liberal.
be. You could
Yeah,
be
but I'm
the
not a
stupid
liberal.
one.
But I'm not a liberal, so I can't be stupid.
Okay, but who determines what's stupid and what's not?
If you vote for a
If
Democrat at any point in your life, you're dumb.
so that's just the majority of America.
The majority of Americans are dumb then, if that's actually true. But I think that,
Okay,
well,
but what if the
hold on a
majority
second.
is what if the majority is who determines what's stupid? What if the majority is like the minority political party is the stupid part is stupid and should not vote?
Is that even true? I have to fact check you on that. You said that most Americans vote for Democrats, but what about those 80,000 or whatever votes that came in at the last second during the 2020 election? I mean, I think that they're juicing those numbers. To be honest with you, that's just my
The
opinion.
80,000 votes that came in have been shown to be from mail-in ballots, which were just pre-counted and then just added on at the end because that's how mail-in ballots work and that's how they've worked since we've had mail-in ballots.
It's a convenient excuse, I
A
suppose.
convenient
But
excuse that we've used every single year we've had elections, even before there was even talks about mail-in ballots being corrupt.
well,
Yeah.
hey, look, I'll tell you this: next time you drive by the cemetery, you should wave and thank all those Biden voters because I guess they spared you from evil old Trump and a booming economy. Now you've got inflation and high gas prices. So
Again, inflation's up against the world. Gas prices are up across the world. Biden does not control gas prices. If you want to get into an energy debate, I will absolutely do that. But I want to get back to the whole election thing for a little bit, just to acknowledge the fact that every Republican committee found that all fraud was faked, that all claims of fraud did not happen. In fact, some Republican committees within Arizona and California had actually found that fraud occurred to promote Republican voices.
fake
So,
news. That's fake news.
fake news, the Republican Party
Yeah.
admitted it.
Well,
But let's
I
go back
mean,
to the whole stupid people not being allowed to vote.
yeah, but the Republican Party is not like actually conservative. They're rhinos for the most part.
Whatever floats your boat. They admitted that they still admitted it. I don't care. They admitted that there was fraud on their end. They found no fraud.
Yeah.
Even
Well, just
Trump appointed investigators still admit no fraud. Anyways, let's get back to the stupid people not being allowed to vote.
they should not be allowed.
I think everyone has the right to try to determine how to live their lives.
Wrong.
Wrong? So you just believe you know better than people.
No, I just don't think if you're dumb, there should be like a litmus test for voting. If you fail, you can't vote. It's like the
Okay,
same thing
so
with
what?
It's like the same thing with driving. It's like you
Okay,
don't allow
so
people to.
that's what they believed in Jim Crow, Mississippi. They had, tests to test your intelligence.
Yeah, and
And those became very corrupt very quick because white people did not have to take them.
okay, so we're going to make sure that everybody takes them, so we don't have any discrimination. Easy.
Okay. But they can still do it. There can still be a Republican or a Democrat or a socialist or a fascist to come in and just use that system to their
Okay,
benefit.
I got the solution. We'll have an independent craft the test, so it's not biased in one side or another.
There is no such thing as independence.
Yes, there are. I am one.
You are not. You fall in line with some form of political ideology in some way or another, whether
I'm an
sympathy or
independent.
fully.
I'm an independent slash centrist.
Okay. Then why
I
is
think I
every
told you that before, by the way. So
Yeah,
I'll-
but most of your views have fallen in conservative spaces.
that's
So
wrong.
no, everything you've argued here has been pro-conservative
How am I conservative?
because everything you've argued is pro-conservative. You may not label yourself as a conservative, but everything you've argued, all your viewpoints have been conservative. So if you were
Okay,
to be the
which-
one to make the test, you would unknowingly or possibly knowingly make it to where it's harder for liberals and
Nah.
easier for conservatives.
No
That's
way.
just a thing.
I'm an independent. It would be
You can
like if I did it,
say
it would be
you're an
totally
independent
impartial.
all day long, but that doesn't make you an independent.
If I crafted the test, it would be totally impartial because I'm an independent and centrist.
Okay. What's a woman? There we go. There
A
is an
female, a
there is an
female human with
example of
XX
political
chromosomes.
bias.
That's not political though. Like that's just a question of biology.
Is it a biological
Yeah,
question?
yeah, it's a biological question.
Okay. Uh, but it's a political litmus test.
See, why do you got to make it? See, that's what I don't like about this whole like leftist thing. It's like you guys have to turn everything into like a political question. Like
Because
it,
everything is political.
yeah,
Any, eh,
that's bullshit, and you know it, man. Like you didn't grow up thinking like, you weren't like, did you? Okay, do you consider yourself a man?
I do consider myself a man. Yeah.
Okay, how long have you considered yourself a man?
Probably since I had conscious thought.
Okay, and so did you need somebody to tell you that you're a man, or did you just figure like, did you need a
I figured it
politician?
out. Does a
Did a post?
trans woman need someone
Okay,
to tell them that they're a man? Or did
but
they just figure out that, hey, I identify more comfortably with a woman? Your logic
yeah,
works both ways. Only we
but
know
you
what's
said it's
comfortable for us.
yeah, but you said it's political. So did a politician tell you you're a man in order for you to figure that
Political
out?
doesn't have to mean politician. Everything is political because politics just tends to mean whatever affects your life and whatever affects society.
Yeah, but see, you're
Are
dodging the
are
question because
economics political?
you're dodging the question. Did a politician tell you you're a man or not?
No.
Exactly. That's my point. Boom. So it's not political.
Political doesn't mean politicians. Politicians meaning whatever. Political is trying to have some kind of control of your life with the government. At least that's my definition. And government can control literally any facet of life if we let it. Meaning, politics, voting, debating, organizing, religion, charity, all of that in some way or another is political. The right to life
Well,
is political. My
well,
life
like I
is
told you,
political. Your life is
yeah.
political.
Well, like I told you earlier, like as far as this whole like transgender thing goes, like I said, you should just treat people like nicely and respectfully and all that. But you're not gonna force me to alter my own perception of the world, right? And that's what it comes down to. It's like you can't impose that on me. Like I'm still gonna have my view of the world. Doesn't mean I'm gonna be rude to trans people or some shit. But it just
Okay, but
means
let's
that
go back to the whole stupid, test, the litmus test.
yeah. Well,
Imagine
that
it
was
is something super woke, questions like, what is a woman? And you write in, anyone with XX chromosomes. Boom, not allowed to vote because you're considered stupid.
well that's why we have to change the government. Like the whole woke thing is like a challenge to intelligence to begin with. So that's like a perfect example. Okay, if woke people are in charge, then people are going to start failing those questions on that test. But if we have sensible people writing the test, then
Who
guess
decides
what?
what's sensible or not?
I mean, it's intuitive. It's like, okay,
But it's
so
not intuitive to everyone.
yeah, it is though, because it's like I
It's
said, like,
not, clearly.
but
Otherwise, we'd
but it
all have the
is.
same thought, but we don't.
But I proved to you that it is when I asked you, did you need a politician to tell you you're a man? You said you figured that out on your own. Why did you figure that out on your own without anybody telling you?
That's my own identity. I figured out my identity. The fact that me and you
Okay.
disagree on what a woman is shows that what a woman is not intuitive. My identity, however, is still only up to me because it is
I don't
mine.
think that we have a disagreement though, because a disagreement means that you think one way and then I think, oh well, here's my perspective. No, I don't. There's an objective fact here, which is that women are women, men are men, and you got some aberrations or exceptions, but they only prove the rule, basically, right?
Okay, so how do you feel about the whole separation between sex and gender?
Uh, what is that?
Basically, sex is your chromosomes, your body, and all of that, and gender is how you present yourself to society. You can be female, like a biological female, but a presenting male, meaning you have XX chromosomes, but you're a trans man. Meaning, yes, you can be a biological female. However, society sees you as a man. Therefore, you're a man because that's just how most people see you.
Well, I guess that's how. Well, okay, then you're a dude. Then, boom.
All right. But what if I right here had XX chromosomes?
If you had XX chromosomes, you wouldn't have a beard.
I could.
If you have XX chromosomes,
I
if you have XX chromosomes, the only way you're gonna have a beard is if you start taking testosterone.
Uh huh. And
But you don't have. Okay. What's your
my
point?
gender
Does
would
that?
still be male because you look at me and I'm
But
like,
see,
I
but
look
then
like
you're
a
getting
man.
help. See, you're getting help with the sauce. The chemicals. And I
Okay, but
told you
not
earlier. I
every
told
man
you.
can grow a beard.
Yeah, but I told you earlier the chemicals are not good for you.
Okay, any any increase in any super high increase of any kind of chemical can kill you. You can die from too much water. You can
But
go
you know
too
what?
high up in the atmosphere and get too much oxygen.
Look, man. I'm just this whole thing. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really give a shit about the whole transgender thing. I just think that like I told you, I made my position on it pretty clear. But I think what I had the most frustration with you on was this talk of like U.S. intervention around the globe, which that's what I'm actually most passionate about. Is like how's my motherfucking money going around the world, and we're just like bombing motherfuckers, and the left in America is all like, oh yeah, man, like that's fucking cool. But see, that's
I
why I'm
don't
not a
think it's
leftist
cool. The
because I'm
left has always been anti like military intervention as in America
that's
being
cap
no, listen, as in America being the aggressor. That's always
cap
been the case. We
that's
never
cap.
want to be the aggressor. Even within the Socialist Party within America during World War II, we still didn't want to get in the war because we were so focused on homegrown issues.
Well, maybe we shouldn't have gotten involved. I don't know.
I say we should because I
No, the Russians already had that shit handled. Who cares,
Russians were
dude? Like,
never going to win World War II. They had
are you
they
what?
had millions of men, but if they don't have the trucks
Nah,
to get those men to
cap,
the supply, now
cap.
listen. If even if listen, Joseph Stalin even admitted that without America's supplies, they would have never won. Without our coal, steel, gasoline, our trucks, our black tar, they would have not won. You can have a
That's
million
cap.
men, but with no rifles, they can't do shit.
Nah, they were gonna win that war already by the time America stepped in. It doesn't.
Why was Russia losing miserably until America started giving them aid? Why was
What the fuck are you talking about? Look at their victory in whatever Leningrad or whatever. I
You
mean,
mean
like they
Stalingrad
Stalingrad. Yeah.
after we've been doing Lend-Lease for about 2 years?
What does that have to do with anything? They were still doing the majority of the fighting. Like I
But
think
we
for
were
every
giving them
like
the supplies. War is not one.
for
War is not one on
for
the back of the
they made
soldier.
a
It's
they
one.
made a
It's
they
one on
still
the
made a
back of the people who
tremendous
making it.
they made a tremendous sacrifice. I think it was like still like two Soviet soldiers for like every German or something were died fighting back the liberal Nazi menace. I think that's an important thing to remember. I don't really, I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really appreciate the disrespect. You gotta respect the people who fought in World
No,
War
I
II.
respect them. I'm just saying they would have never won if they didn't have the supplies. Any good, any good military, thinker knows that it's all about supplies. It's all about supply chains.
Well,
You can't win.
you
You
can quibble
can't.
about the little details here and there. They still did the legwork and still did it. And
But
I
they would have
think
not
that
done it if they didn't have rifles. How are they going to win against Nazi Germany? They didn't have bullets to shoot at them. They wouldn't have. How are they going to go if they didn't have roads to get their massive transports of supplies? How are they going to do it if they didn't have food? They couldn't have. You can't just give a man a gun and a few bullets, say run at the enemy, and they're going to win. That's just not how it works. That's not how any war works.
they still had their tanks. They had all that stuff, man. They were able to
Supplied
do
with
stuff.
American steel that were
Well, how
transported with on roads
whatever
made of American black tar.
arrangements they had, and I don't know the specifics of it, but they did their thing, and that's like, and see, I figured you would be more about that because like you're like, oh, I'm a socialist, but like I guess you're slandering the Soviets or something. I don't know. I don't
No,
really know
I'm
much about
saying that. Listen,
it.
I am saying yes. Also, fuck the Soviet Union because Stalin sucks. But also,
So was Stalin
soldier
like the supreme leader of the Soviet Union?
he was, and also fuck him for the Holodomor and the gulags. But
Was so
just
like
be,
from the inception to its end, he was just the guy running game, huh?
I mean, from the inception of his presidency or dictatorship, yeah, not
Nah,
from the
you're
Soviet
yeah.
Union.
See, even I know that that's not true, dude. He wasn't just like ruling the Soviet Union with an iron fist, man. Like he was still there were other people that were involved. Like he wasn't a
People that he
king.
appointed.
He wasn't a king though. I know there was times where he wanted to do something, but the people around him were like, "Nah, we're not going to do that."
Yeah,
I
his
mean, it's just
appointed cabinet, the people he put in power. But anyways, what I'm
I'm
going
just
on
saying,
this
man.
is
I thought that was like your guys' dude. Like I thought leftists were
no,
all
no,
about
no.
that.
I mean, some people who claim to be leftists, yes, but they oftentimes don't even care about economics. They just tend to be more LARPy about the old Soviet Union days of kicking Nazi ass, which, yes, the Soviets did kick Nazi ass, but they did it with the help of American supplies. American brass, American tar, American wheat.
I'd have to look into the specifics of that particular thing because I actually that I don't actually know too much about.
Just
Not
look into the
specific.
Lend-Lease Acts. Look at all the supplies we gave the Soviet Unions. Most of the trucks that drove on the ice to supply Leningrad during the siege
I
were
don't know. Yeah,
American trucks. The old
I'm
half-ton.
I'm aware of the whole land lease thing, but it's like at the end of the day, that's kind of like stealing some valor. I think like, oh yeah, we
No,
didn't
it's an
do this.
admittance. It's an admittance of, hey,
Nah,
supplies
that's
win the
stealing.
war.
That's just the
You can
Americans
have
trying to
a
steal some
million
valor.
men, but without a rifle, they're nothing compared to the man with a machine gun and a million bullets.
All right. Well, yeah. I like I said, I had to look into the specifics of that. I mean, I guess I'll take you at your word, even though I kind of don't really agree with that. I know that the Soviets really like did a lot of hard work in
Oh no, they
fighting the
absolutely did.
Nazis. So
And just saying that they were given supplies from another country does not diminish their gains whatsoever. Millions of Soviets, Russians, Ukrainians, whoever was part of the Soviet Union at the time, died, and they should obviously be respected. I come from a military family. Everyone in my family was in the military all the way back to 1776.
okay, and you hate America, so like, what's your deal, man?
I don't hate America. I
Yeah, but
love
you're
America.
leftist. Leftists hate America.
I don't. I love America. I want America to be better than what it is now. I want it to constantly being improving. I think anyone who says America is great and wants it to stay here is childish and honestly wants the decline of America. We need constant
Nah,
innovation. We need constant improvement. If you're okay with it with
I
things now,
agree. I agree with you, but in a different way. Because I think that the leftists are like, what they want to do is they want to like do like the whole. You know what neocons are?
yeah, I know.
Like
But
leftists
just
are
because most
basically
leftists are like that doesn't mean I'm like that. I'm not
the
someone
left.
who became a leftist through theory. I didn't read like Karl Marx. I didn't read any of that shit. I came through it because I've worked, in certain companies, in certain environments. I live certain ways to where I just kind of came
But
about
look,
to be where I
you
am.
should look into. See, if I told you that the far left is actually in power, you would call me crazy, right?
Yeah, I
But
would because
well, they
it's
actually have, but they have been for a long time. Do you know about? Have you heard of this thing called Trotskyism?
yes, I have.
Okay,
Democratic councils of worker
fun.
unions.
Yeah, yeah. Fun fact: a lot of the OG Trotskyists, like in say I forget what's his name. You'd have to look it up, but look up how a lot of the original Trotskyists later on became they joined the Republican Party in the United States, and they formed what was called the neoconservatives. And the neoconservatives, their legacy, I guess, culminated in George W. Bush, right? And so the neocons were actually like the leftist Republicans, because what they wanted to do was they wanted to spread so-called democracy and like liberal values around the world, which is like what their pretext for invading Iraq was. That's what they sold to the American people. We know that's actually not true. That's not why they actually went in there, but that was what they used to fool the American public, which was basically a leftist type of principle that they were trying to sell to the American people. We need to spread human rights and democracy. Well, that's a leftist language. It's
Here,
not.
I know what you're talking about. The main reason why Trotskyists within the Socialist Party of America back in the 30s started supporting the Republican Party was mainly because they saw it as a way to enfranchise the more working class areas of the U.S. where Republican parties were getting a lot of hold. That's a lot to do with the legacy of Taft and Teddy Roosevelt. However, neoconservatism came through Reagan, a man who wanted to spread democracy by just opening American markets. Whenever Reagan said spread democracy, it kind of almost
Oh,
always meant
you're thinking of neoliberalism, but
no, 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 no,
neoconservatism
no. I'm thinking of
is predates
neoconservatism
Reagan.
because they are almost one and the same. And I know that is a very
Yeah,
controversial. That's a
there's a big
controversial
crossover.
opinion on the
Yeah.
right and against tanky scholars, but it's honestly kind of true because neoconservatism is the whole let's spread our democracy. Meanwhile, neoliberalism is just kind of a reiteration of imperialism. They can do the same thing together. You can say you're spreading democracy, and then you can install a fascist dictator in Chile. But all of a sudden, your American goods are being sold there.
Well,
Wow.
that's right. So yeah, that's what I'm saying is that the neocons are actually the far left.
Okay, but if they're all about opening markets, they're all about opening free capitalist markets, they're no longer on the left. If they're a pro fascist dictatorship just so American goods can be sold in a country, they're not on the left anymore. Just because they
Okay,
claim to be leftist doesn't mean they're leftist. I can say my skin is purple. My skin is not purple. It's
but
not
I'm
how
saying that
that
they're
works.
leftist. They're leftist in their
They were leftist 100 years ago.
no,
Times
no, no.
have
I'm saying
changed.
I'm saying that they're leftist in their what's the word, ontology, like their ontological uh
The spreading of
sort of.
democracy is not in something inherently tied to leftism. Athens, the quote unquote birthplace of democracy, had a whole empire where they went into cities and installed democracies. They were not what we would consider leftist by any means because that's something that just was not a thing then. There's
Right. Yeah.
leftist there's
Leftism start the term left and right when it comes to politics that comes out of the French Revolution, I believe, because like you had people. What was it? They were like sitting on the left. If you were in favor of
of the
the
monarchy, you were on the right, and if you were in favor
right,
of
yeah,
liberalism, you were on the left.
yeah. I'm aware of that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like a more
but
recent thing,
leftist now
relatively.
in modern colloquially sent fuck that word, you know what I mean, colloquial, yeah, that word,
Yeah,
means
colloquial.
mainly to do with economics, but now since the 1990s, since the resurgence of the culture war tactics, it also does include social rights issues again. But for the most part, it means economics because for some reason tankies are still considered leftists,
What's a
despite
tanky?
anyone who's like just basically pro fascist government, with the full, they could be like a Klan member, but if they want like a communist government kind of economic system, they're still like a leftist somehow.
Wait, so let me get this. There's Ku Klux Klan members that want a communist government.
There can be. Economics are not inherently tied to societal views. I hate to use the political compass, but honestly, for a layman's term, that is probably the best example.
I'm sorry, but I've never heard of this. I think it was. I think in the South, it was a lot of the
They're
communist.
anti-com. Yeah, no, they're anti-com. I'm just using it as an example of how someone can be so reactionary but they are still okay with like a lot of like leftist
I think
economic stances.
if memory serves me right, there was a famous case of like there was a communist rally somewhere in the South, and I
The
think
one in North
yeah,
Carolina where the Klan came in and shot up the. I know it was just an example of showing how someone who can be so far, reactionary, so far right reactionary, can still have such a left wing economic stance. But for some reason, as a society, we still call them left wing. We call, you know, the Stalin government a leftist government, despite him being so openly anti Semitic, so openly racist, so openly homophobic. But because he had like left wing economics, we call it a leftist government.
I think you know what I think the real reason why a lot of the leftists they hate Stalin. I kind of have my own theory about it. I think what it is that they don't like the they don't see the left are kind of at least in the West, like in the United States. I noticed that a lot of leftists they're like, oh, we don't like Stalin. He was a meanie, and I think what that is that like leftism in the U.S. is basically like kind of like a negationist philosophy in the sense that they want to challenge any and all sort of boundaries and things like that. And Stalin represents like the father figure, right? So it's kind of like an Oedipal thing. So Stalin is like this strong man, and and something about that angers them.
I
I
mean,
noticed that when
leftists do tend to hate, I mean, real ones do tend to hate strong man figures. Not all of them. A lot of them like to idol worship. I hate idol worship, and a lot of people who are just like have Stalin posters are just doing that. I hate all these people who are like, you're not a real leftist because you didn't read this one German philosopher and all that. You didn't read this one politician. I hate that. That tears down movements. That's why leftism
Yeah, but
has.
leftist, like I said, it's about negation in the United
Well,
States. If
then
you ever meet your
leftists
average
have more
leftist,
icons on average than like a conservative. You
but
know,
listen to the language that leftists use in the United States. What are the words that they use? Abolish, right? Dismantle.
anarchistic, anarchistic.
It's all about like tearing things down. We're gonna destroy this, destroy that. We're gonna alter language. We're gonna alter culture. We're gonna,
Because that's
it's
just the
like.
natural progression of
But
just
see, I would argue that
progressivism.
but see, I disagree with that because that's not how
We're going to
even.
dismantle slavery. We're going to dismantle women not having bank accounts. We're going to dismantle uh, uh, Catholics being burned. We're going to dismantle Jews not getting gassed.
I didn't say that. I don't think there's. It's like I don't think that
No,
there's
no, no.
zero
I get what you
utility
mean, but
in.
go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's zero utility in say like in the context of something like slavery. But I'm just saying that even when it comes to like language itself, they're focused on intervening, or they're intervening in spheres of culture that are, I think, beyond human control even. And so that's kind of like my gripe with all these leftists in the U.S. is that they're like, yeah, like they're just about negation. They're not about construction. They're about destruction, deconstruction, even.
Because these are systems that they want gone. If you ever notice how they've, uh, if they want something gone, you're going to say, I want it gone. You're not going to say, let's also add on to it. Uh oh, he's gone. Oh no, I said gone. He disappeared. Fuck. He's back.
I think it. Hello.
Yo.
Oh, sorry, disconnected. I guess.
Yeah,
Go
no,
on.
you're good. But what I was saying is like, yeah, if you're saying you want something gone, you're gonna say you're gonna want it gone. It's not let's add on to the system. That's if you want to see leftists to talk about that, you can see uh soc dems and dem socs talk about it. Democratic socialists and social democrats. They're
You're all scum to me. You're all just liberals. No, I'm kidding. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
sure.
I was about to say, it's like, am I? I wonder if he actually knows the difference between sock dem and dem sock because
I'm a.
that
You
takes
know
a
what's
lot
funny?
of people.
That's another gripe that I have. I think it's so funny when talking to leftists, they act as if they have like some kind of esoteric knowledge. Like they have like all these like buzzwords, lingo that only they understand. It's like, dude, I understand. I know what you're talking about. It's just that I don't agree with you. Like they for some reason they think that they're the only ones who've ever read Marx or Lenin or something.
Yeah, no, I have a huge gripe with just most leftists, especially online. I think in real life, the majority of leftists are fine and okay, but the ones online are just
Do you want me to give
awful.
you the list? Do you want me to give you the list of which leftists are cool? When which ones you have to stay away from at all costs?
You can go ahead. I have a strong
Okay.
feeling. Is just go ahead. I'll.
Okay. The leftists that are okay or that you can get along with are the following. Uh, like the boomer hippie types that like to
You're right.
smoke pot and vote for the Green Party. Those are usually cool.
Willie Nelson. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like
Hell
those kinds
yeah.
of people. Yeah, they're usually cool. Um, the other kind of cool ones, I guess, would be maybe again maybe like the older ones that are more into like, and this is basically dying out, so but I guess just more of like a blue collar types that are maybe more
And he's gone again. Oh, I was gonna ask him to find blue collar. So sad. Now we'll never know what blue collar means. Pain, suffering. I wanted to know. Yo, bro, you good? You still in chat or? Also, thank you to everyone in chat. I love seeing your conversations. It's keeping my ADHD at bay because now I got two things going on. Thank you. I love you all. There you are. Cool.
did it cut out?
Yeah, yeah. It showed that you got disconnected.
Okay, where did I leave off? I'm sorry.
You were talking about like blue collar, like older blue collar types being okay, and I was just about to ask you to define blue collar.
Oh, okay. Just like just like the working man type. But okay. But I think it cut off when I was describing something. The ones that you want to stay away from. Did I get to that, or did it cut
No,
out?
it cut off on the second one you were talking about, which was the older blue
Okay.
collar types.
Okay. So, well, I'll get to the one. Okay, the leftists that you must stay away from at all costs are the ones who speak in overly academic jargon.
Correct.
Uh, yes, they're also usually women. Now that not to be sexist though, but that's just the case.
Stay away from women. Understood.
Yes,
Icky.
yes, you want to stay away from women unless you're going to marry them.
Yes, cooties. I'm aware.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I think I've covered everything. I mean, it's getting kind of late, so I just think I can't be on here all night.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was gonna say like maybe close up a little bit after 2 hours,
Yeah, yeah.
but I was
Um,
just gonna ask you to define blue collar, just for a real
Blue
quick
collar?
one.
Oh yeah, sure, blue collar. Like plumbers, electricians, that sort of thing.
Okay. What about McDonald's worker? Are they blue collar?
Um, sir, you mean just service sector
Yeah.
workers? Yeah, I guess. I don't
Okay.
know.
We can agree with that because to me the definition of blue collar is just anyone who is in a lower paying job because they don't have a certain degree.
Yeah, I'm not really hung up on all that stuff. I just don't think, I think I think most workers in general are not really liberal or leftist to begin with. They're usually kind of conservative, in my experience.
It depends on the region. Regions tend to play more anything like rural or city.
I think the most important people, and the left is fucking up really badly because the left, well, that's what they do. But the people that I noticed the left is rejecting are like the truckers and the farmers, oddly
Well,
enough.
not necessarily the farmers. They're rejecting the people who own farms. That's why you see farm workers generally vote blue, while people who own the land those farms are on vote red. Truckers are going to always just be a different case.
Uh, I mean, I would just argue that those are the most advanced sections of the working class, basically, in the sense that if the truckers and farmers went on strike, the entire country would come to a halt, and then they would have the establishment's ear, basically, right?
Okay, but
Now,
what
what
if
would
the
happen if
farmers.
every
Okay, but like I said, farmers within America, the field hands, the people who actually do the physical labor, tend to be blue voting. Meanwhile, the ones who own the farm tend to vote red.
Oh, okay, that's what you're saying. I don't know. I wasn't really thinking about whether they vote for Republicans or Democrats. I don't think that's that important. But I was just gonna say, okay, I'll give you a thought experiment. What would happen if every Starbucks worker in the country all went on strike all at once? What would happen?
No one would get Starbucks. What would happen if every person who worked at a Walmart went on strike?
I don't think much would change, to be honest.
Ah, a lot of towns in the South would starve.
I think okay, my point is that if every Starbucks worker went on strike, it wouldn't mean shit. If the farmers and truckers are on strike, then you've got something going there. That's just what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but like I said, what about the people who work at Walmart? What if every Walmart got shut down?
The people would just shop on Amazon. I don't know.
Okay, what if every Amazon warehouse worker stopped working?
Uh, that could bear out something maybe.
Yeah, exactly. To me, it's less about who you vote for because generally the people who own their own means of production tend to be more right leaning, meaning truckers because they don't want to pay taxes on their trucks.
Yeah, they're also in debt because I think some of them have to take out loans to get the truck, or they're renting in some cases, right?
Exactly. To me, the whole reason why truckers aren't more voting more blue is more cultural issues because most truckers tend to be rural people. But if you were to bring them up on economics, they would vote blue more reliably. I mean, they'd be old dog Democrats, but that's still something.
Yeah, but that Democratic Party's already over. They're not going to be like that at all anymore.
I think that's more. I mean, I kind of agree, but I think it's more up to the people to start educating.
Hell no, man. They're gonna force you guys to vote for Pete Buttigieg, and you're probably gonna do it.
I mean,
Oh
I
god.
think No, that's Beto O'Rourke. I get those two, Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke, confused all
They
the
got you
time.
guys to vote for Biden. I mean, they can make you do anything.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I do see the Democratic Party as a dying thing. However, they are the institution that is in. There is no work to be done for a left party in
Dude,
America.
you need to vote for like a working class candidate like Trump. I think that would make more
Trump is
sense.
not working class.
He's 100% working class,
He
and
received
he's
a
got
loan of
sass.
$1 million. He never worked a day in
That's a
his life.
small. That's just a one-time small loan of $1 million. It's not that big of a deal.
The working class people don't get that. Trump was fully
Some of them
college.
do. Some of them do.
Trump was fully college educated. Was never blue collar. He was also super rich growing up. He
So what
never
you're
worked a
saying?
day in his life.
So what you're saying is that he's a class traitor. He like sacrificed his position in the upper class to help the working man. So that
He
makes him
never
sound even
helped the working
better.
man. Why did wages go
That
down for
sounds
the
that
working
makes.
class?
But you just made him sound even better than I originally thought. So thank
Yeah,
you.
he parades himself as a working class hero the same way Tucker Carlson does. You know, you watch Tucker Carlson all the time on Fox News go, us working class Americans just don't care about gay people having parades. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson
We
is a
don't
trust
though.
fund.
That's
Hold
all
on,
facts.
hold on. But here's the thing. That's not the point of this. The point is that they're lying about being working class to try to relate to these people. They're not working class. They're
Bro, I
trust
know they're not
fund
working.
babies. They're
Dude, I know he's
millionaires.
not. Do you think I thought Tucker Carlson's working? That's not the point, man. It's like the point is that he's speaking facts on TV. He's just telling it how it is.
Oh, Trump's speaking
And
facts Trump's a liar.
not
All
well,
he ever did was lie. He said he was working class.
Tucker speaks facts like 99.9% of the time. Like I,
Why did he go to court one time getting sued over being wrong and his whole thing was just a normal sensible person would not listen to anything I said.
bro, that's what you say when you're trying to win a trial. You're gonna say all sorts of shit you might not even mean.
No, the whole thing was if he was right, he could have just pulled up the evidence that he was right.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't feel like dealing with that.
So why did he go for a longer con argument if he didn't feel like dealing with it?
Because the more you start, the more shit you
It
start
could
bringing
if
up
it was
in
a yes
court,
or
the
no
more it's
question,
gonna
why
come
did he
back.
say maybe yes and or but? He could have just
I
said
think they
yes
just.
or no.
I think that defense was employed just to like wash your, just try to wrap things up. Basically, it wasn't like I don't think that because if you watch this, do you watch this show at all?
I did. I used to watch it religiously growing up.
How old are you?
I am 21.
Okay, so wow, I'm just surprised that people would grow up watching Tucker, but that's cool. Whatever. I'm just saying that if you watch his program, I think a lot of the times you're gonna find that it's a lot. He speaks a lot of things that are true. You might just not
He
agree
speaks
with
things that are initially true. They feel true. However, when you look into it, they tend to be wrong. The whole
I'm
thing
gonna
of
give
like
you.
us working class
I,
Americans don't care about Black Lives Matter and gay issues tends to be wrong whenever working class actually just means people who don't have a college educated job, a
see
job
when
that doesn't require a college education. Because whenever he says working class, you think plumbers, you think coal miners, you think all of that. Whenever working class now doesn't mean those things like it did 100 years ago.
I know
Working class
that's because
now,
our elites sold us out, dude. I'm telling you.
no, working class now also just means people who worked in warehouses. It also means factory workers. It also means Walmart stockers. It also means plumbers. It also means whatever job you have that doesn't require, a college degree. Meaning, no, most working class people do care about Black Lives Matter. They actually
Nah,
do. The,
cap.
why is the majority of the black population working class?
I don't think the majority of the black population gives two shits about BLM, but I think that they
Do
have
they not care
sent.
about their do they not care about the core tenets of Black Lives Matter as in don't
They
shoot
share
me
this.
cop?
Yeah, they share those sentiments. I don't
Then
think
they
that they
do care about
actually.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a sentiment.
I
It's not
think
a
they have.
movement.
It's a no. It's an organization.
It
Remember,
is an
those people like.
organization. However, the random hashtag Black Lives Matter doesn't give like 5 cents to the organization.
Okay, I know, but I'm saying that the sentiment that some black people may have is not the same thing as supporting BLM. I don't think that that's the same thing.
The sentiment of Black Lives
Oh,
Matter is the
uh,
sentiment of Black Lives Matter.
no, that's not true, dude. That's just the slogan, and then it became an organization that stole a bunch of money from people.
Yeah, the organization fucking sucks. Thanks, Tariq Nasheed. However, people still agree with the sentiment of the movement. They also still agree with the sentiment of the organization. The majority of the working class still agrees with that sentiment. It doesn't feel right because you have all these preconceived notions within your head. And Tucker Carlson plays beautifully to it. I will say he's a great orator. He's a great speaker. He gets a lot of reactions. However, if you look into any of his segments, you see how wrong he actually is, which is why when he went to court, he said no sensible person would ever take me seriously.
That's called cap. He was capping when he said that.
He did not, because that's how he won the case. He did win the case, but it's
Yeah,
basically by
that's
saying
why he said
everyone
that
who
to
watches
win.
me is mentally challenged.
Nah, I don't think so. That's
That's
not
what he
true.
said, and that's how he won.
He didn't mean it. He was just saying that to win. Like you're gonna say all sorts of shit in court, dude. I'm telling you. Like if
You're
you,
going to
you
say all
ever,
sorts of shit to win, like Trump's saying, I am working class, despite harming the working class in America.
bro, if I gave you $1 million, do you think you could accomplish what Trump accomplished?
Probably not, because I haven't had a father and uncles, cousins, family members who are all, brilliant stockbrokers. However,
There
I
you
could do
go.
exactly what Trump did and bungle the first loan of $1 million, just like he did the first time.
Nah, he didn't. Nah,
He
man.
did.
Well, you know,
The first three Trump businesses were all failures. It wasn't until his hotel chain that was already established and he just took over as a manager. That was
look,
the one thing he did.
I think you're low key jealous of his success. That's what I think it comes down to.
I'm
You're
not. I'm
low
a Christian. I don't believe in opulence.
You're low key jealous that Trump was goaded with the sauce. Just admit it.
No, Jesus said rich people are bad.
Jesus did not say rich people are bad because Jesus said he loves everybody. I believe in the Bible it says it's easier for a rich man to enter the eye of a needle than it is for him to enter heaven. If I'm not mistaken.
It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the heaven.
Yeah, whatever. I was close enough.
Meaning, rich people don't go to heaven.
Look, read Corinthians 2. That's Trump's favorite passage in the Bible. Corinthians.
I'm just saying. What was I saying? Yeah, Trump is not working class.
He 100% is a working class billionaire.
What job did he do? What was his job? What was his non-college educated job?
Okay, look, obviously Trump is not working class. He does not come from a working class background. And I don't even particularly care about Trump one way or the other, but I
Did he
think
care for the working class?
well, I'll get to that. So I think that what he represented was a positive development in American politics in the sense that it activated a portion of the American public that would otherwise have not cared about the American military expanding all over the world or our jobs going away to other parts of the world. Because I don't really remember people talking about that type of stuff until Trump came on the scene.
Then you were not politically active.
Well, most conservatives weren't talking about offshoring our jobs being a terrible thing. Most of the time they were saying, well, we just have cheaper products now, so that's okay. Nobody was really talking about that kind of stuff until he came around.
Okay, but here's
sure
the
there was
thing.
some.
Why are more jobs still constantly being offshored? Why are more and more factories still going off to Mexico and Latin America? They can say one thing every day, but they're lying. I much rather have a truthful politician that says, yes, I am going to send factories to Mexico, than one that's like, no, I'm going to bring them here. Meanwhile, passing background legislation that you're not going to pay attention to, that was going to allow more factories to go.
Yeah, I think what you'll find is that no matter what happens, if you find yourself as president, like there's going to be plenty of people to undermine you, like no matter what. Like I don't think that it's not like that he was the king of America.
But what's that have anything to do with Trump saying like I'm going to bring back factory jobs when he passed more legislation that made it easier for factories to go off elsewhere? What's it going to be? How's it undermining when Trump said I'm going to raise?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that that aspect of Trump is a bit schizophrenic because like sometimes he would say one thing and then another thing would happen, and it's the same thing with like the foreign policy stuff too.
Yeah,
like,
his foreign policy. What about the fact that he said he was going to make working class America, what happened when he said he was going to help him out? Why did average working class wages go down? Why did taxes on the working class go up? when he said he was going to do a tax cut.
Yeah, I
Why
get
did that
it.
tax cut only apply to rich people, but
But
however,
I
it was a
think that
tax hike on middle class and lower class Americans?
yeah, I get it. I think that there's certain things that he wanted to do that were beyond his control. There's certain mistakes that he made. There were certain people that he surrounded himself with that I think were a
What
big
good
mistake.
did he do? Of the things that you
And
attribute good to him, what did
yes,
he actually do?
I'm getting to that. Yeah. So the good that he did was like I said, he has politicized a portion of America that was asleep before he came around. I think there's a lot of people underestimate just how much of an impact he had on spurring a certain section of the American population that had checked out of politics and to get them back in, back in and involved again. I think that in and of itself, I think is pretty important to do, especially when it comes to some of the things he was saying, which were considered like anathema. Like you never heard Jeb Bush saying the kind of stuff that Trump was saying. So I think that like the fact that he was able to kind of bring some of those things back into the mainstream, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a positive. That's something you can work with down the line. I think maybe maybe the Trump movement
What
will
did he
turn
bring into the mainstream?
well, he brought back this populist force in American politics. The people love him. People love Trump.
Okay, so he brought back idol worship. Is that
Working class,
good?
no, it's not idol worship, and you know that.
They believe everything he said,
They
despite
don't
it
have
being
statues.
lies.
They don't have statues of Trump. They don't worship Trump. We both know that that's not true. Come
They
on.
buy his merch like crazy. They treat him like he's a famous
I don't.
musician.
I'm sure there's some eccentric people who go a little overboard, but like so okay, you think most Trump supporters are like that? That's ridiculous.
I do think most Trump supporters are like that. Yes,
No, they're not.
most Trump supporters are very open about being Trump supporters.
I don't think that they have a shit ton of like merchandise. No, come on,
Have you
that's
not
just
seen
silly.
just "Make America Great Again" hats, flags, shirts, Trump
Yeah,
face,
okay, that's
MAGA
it's one.
shit? That's
Yeah, it's
his
one thing to
merch.
have.
That is
Yeah,
his
it's one thing.
merchandise.
It's not bad to show support for somebody you believe in. Wouldn't you want to support somebody? Wouldn't you want to show support for somebody that you felt strongly about supporting?
Yes, by flyering, putting up posters, and all of that, by actually promoting their political message, not by
Yeah,
buying shit off a store and just constantly just parading it about like it's a fucking band T-shirt.
you're just
That's
jealous
what
because
it
you.
is.
I think you're just partially jealous because it's like there's no like equivalent on your side of the aisle. It's like it's not like you
No,
can wear
there's
like a
not, and I'm
Joe.
glad there's not because I disagree
Yeah,
with it
because it's not
fundamentally.
like yeah, because it's not like you can just like get like a Joe Biden ball cap and feel good about it. Even like Biden supporters will admit that Biden sucks.
Yeah, no, because we all do hate him. And I'm glad
Yeah,
about that. I don't think we should idolize politicians. I don't think we should idolize billionaires.
yeah, that's even worse, dude. Like you're basically saying I hate this guy that I supported. Like that's
No, it's not
fucked up.
necessarily. I can like a guy. I liked Howie Hawkins of the Green Party. He was
Yeah.
cool. I'm not going to just like wear his shit as like, I voted green. Look at
Wait,
me.
hold on.
I'm
Did you
cool.
vote for Biden or not?
I voted for Biden, yes.
Oh, dude. Why?
Because the Green Party was never going to win. As much as I love them and as much as I would love a multi party system in America, the Green Party is not allowed in the ballots of 13 states, meaning they're just not going to win.
That sucks. Why you should have supported what you felt like supporting instead of voting for Biden, man. That's like I don't know. Even if I don't agree with you politically, I think you should have still voted how you wanted to vote.
Yeah, no, I do think it's a very sad situation. However, it was just strategic voting.
Strategic? What do you mean? That shit was rigged.
Because if
You-
everyone voted for the Green Party who wanted to, like say if everyone, let's say every Bernie bro wanted to vote for the Green Party,
Based.
Trump would have won.
Based.
And that would have destroyed the Green Party even further, considering Republicans have been the main party dismantling them within Republican majority states to get them off the ballot.
Yeah,
Meaning
but the same
the
thing
Green
happens in
Party
blue.
would be even
Same thing
further
happens
off
in
the
blue
ballot.
states. Same thing happens in blue states for them too. I think they've been treated very unfairly.
They've been treated very
But
unfairly, but they haven't been taken off the ballot.
I believe that the Democratic Party in one of those states was working hard to get them off the
Working
ballot
hard,
in
but they didn't
2020.
succeed. Meanwhile, in
I
red
think they
states,
did actually. I think it was like in. I'm not sure if it was like in Kentucky or where. I forget which
that's
state it
not a
was.
blue state.
Or the, I'm trying to remember what state it was. I just don't remember offhand. But they did
I know
actually
in
successfully.
New York they were trying and they failed.
They
However,
successfully. They got them off the ballot in one of those like blue states. I don't remember which one. You'd have to
Oh,
look that up. But
meanwhile, all the red states they were taken off of are. It was
I
very
don't like
easy.
the Republican Party either, man. Like I got no
So
love
why
for
did you
them.
vote for Trump? Why do you vote Republican? Like for say.
I actually didn't vote for Trump in 2020. I didn't vote for anybody. I decided to sit it out. I was like, I'm over it because Trump didn't fulfill any campaign promises like I wanted to. So I was like, you know what? But now I'm like, maybe I should have voted for him because Biden's wrecking shit.
Exactly. That's how everyone would have felt if we, didn't not vote for Trump, which is a better way to put it.
But you would have had a better life under Trump though, right now.
Oh, I would have had more taxes and a higher college tuition.
No, what you would have had was no like probably little to no inflation and lower gas prices. You would have saved a lot of money.
Here's the thing. All right. This is going to be the final bit because I know you got to go. But I do
Yeah.
want to talk about the inflation and gas prices, mainly because this is my career. Energy is what I live and breathe. So this is where I am fully in. Biden did not raise gas prices. Agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Why?
Because Biden's a dumb motherfucker. So
What legislation did he write?
the first major fuck up that they did was to impose sanctions on a country whose gas supply was supplying Europe and then affecting the global petrodollar to begin with. So what Biden decided to do was say, okay, I'm gonna be Mr. Tough Guy and try to fuck with OG Putin over there in Russia. And what happens? Boom! Because the gas prices were already rising, but he fucked it up so bad that like they shot up like $3 extra. And then what did they say? Biden, like all these people like at the that were giving the White House press conferences. You know what they said? They were said, well, it's a sacrifice we have to make. So don't give me no BS about Trump, Biden has no involvement with gas prices because he definitely
Do
does. He's
you
a
know who
dumb.
led the coalition for the sanctions against Russia? Do you know what
Who,
country?
who enlighten me?
France.
Fuck them too. Then what do you
France
mean?
did. France led the coalition within the European Union. That's yeah. Yeah, so strike one. Biden,
Fuck them too.
not not an issue with that.
Biden's hella stupid, man. You gotta admit that.
Okay, but that's not an issue. So that one he didn't actually cause. So that point doesn't count. Move on to the next one.
Dude.
What else did he
No,
do?
that's a cop out.
That's not a cop out. If France was the main country who to provoke sanctions against Russia within the European Union, a union which America does not have a seat in, that is who did it.
Dude, I just like read something in your chat. Some guy said he's teaching our kids to identify as animals or plural pronouns if they choose. That's all funny. Sorry, what were you saying? I don't know why that's so funny, but is that true? Are people identifying as animals?
There was like that otherkin shit I remember years ago, but that was literally 13-year-olds on Tumblr who were like
Damn, that's
just
fucked up.
cosplaying.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying, man. Biden's making kids identify as like animals.
That
the
was
gas prices are way too fucking high.
That was under Trump. So that was like that was back in like 2016.
The gas prices are way too fucking high. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
What's
but
going
okay,
on
so
anymore.
why are the gas prices high? What did Biden do?
I just
for
told
that?
you, man. Like it's like a whole series.
So France is Biden's fault.
Yeah, let's bomb them.
All right, give me like an actual thing. Like, tell me something like Biden.
No,
did.
for real though. That actually does. It doesn't matter. Like because the U.S. is in coalition with Western Europe anyway. Like that was a collective decision on their part.
But France was the forerunning decision maker. They were the ones who were the most active, most volatile, and most convincing force.
It doesn't matter. The fact is that they all act in unison together. I mean, that's what. Otherwise,
And so the European Union deciding as a group to not buy oil from Russia is Biden's fault?
They act in coalition. They would not.
So them coming to a decision in Europe is Biden's fault.
They would not be giving White House press conferences telling you to fucking eat it if they didn't have some kind of culpability in that decision making. I think it's very clear
because it's a crisis.
Yeah, but the U.S.
The
was
high gas prices is a
and the U.S.
crisis.
did exert. The U.S. did, by the way, was exerting its leverage over Germany even prior to this because Russia wanted to build the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's over with now. But even long before, even like a few years ago, the U.S. was trying to pressure Germany into backing out of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Yes,
And
the
now,
Nord 2
yeah,
Stream pipeline that's been going on since 2011.
yes,
Where was
okay, well
Biden?
now. But my point is that the U.S. exerts its leverage over European countries all the fucking time. They've
Uh
been doing
huh.
that. And so when you say, "Oh, it's France," I mean, sure, but the U.S. is obviously the
Yeah,
one who.
France, one of the countries in the European Union that has one of the more volatile relations within the U.S., who's constantly openly seeking more of a trade relation,
Yeah,
less with us and more with China.
yes, France has always had a more adversarial relationship when it comes to, as far as the European Union countries are concerned. They've always been kind of more willing to tell us to fuck off than maybe say Germany or whatever. But even still, at the end of the day, we kind of tip the scales in a certain direction. They have to kind of acquiesce. So they're not going to deny us that. But I think that even if you just, I mean, if you just look at what the White House, what our administration's been up to, I think that you'll find that you will see that, and especially this is especially true for Germany right now because they're having an energy crisis over this shit. They're probably gonna freeze during the winter because they're so fucking stupid. But it's
Actually,
like,
Germany's not having an energy crisis. What they're having is an in industry energy crisis.
well, they as a
Meaning they're
result of
just
all of
no,
this.
meaning that most of their energy production is coming from their neighboring countries rather than within themselves because they're having to rebuild the nuclear and plants that they were shutting down.
Well, I'm sure you can spin it any way you like, but I know that it had it not been for these sanctions, we would not we wouldn't be in this mess to begin with. I think the sanctions exacerbated an issue that was already forming and made it just that much worse. So Biden's a dumb motherfucker.
But he
I
didn't.
mean,
He's not the one who did that. That would be Russia for invading the Ukraine, and most of the countries being like, you know what, dude, fuck you.
no, see that's dumb because at the end of the day, it was our leaders who make the decisions that impact us economically. Like you can't just say,
So
well,
it's political.
well, of course it's political, but you can't
Our
just
lives are
you
political.
can't,
I just wanted to
but
get that one in there.
you can't point your finger at somebody and say, look, they made me do this. It's like, well,
So
hold
why
on
are
a
you saying
second.
Biden made gas prices high when all gas companies, all petrol companies, oil and natural, you know, natural gas, are seeing record profits? If it's a crisis, why are their profits rising? If it's because of the sanctions, why are they making all of a sudden all these companies making more money?
Because they're jacking up the prices. What do you mean?
Yeah, they're jacking up the prices. But if the supply is down because of the sanctions, shouldn't this whole supply demand thing mean that they kind of equalize, right?
Well, hold on a second. No, not necessarily. I mean, I think that
No.
the supply, as far as the flow of the supply from Russia to the to neighboring European countries, and then I guess just the global market in general, the sanctions do have an effect on the prices. Let's be clear. You can't weasel your way out of that one. The Biden administration has culpability for that. There's no way around that. Now you can say, well, okay, why isn't the Biden administration, for instance, exerting any sort of influence over the gas companies to try to lower their
They
prices?
are.
Well,
That's why prices have been dropping for the past month. Or
I
past two
think
months,
by
actually.
last time I went to the gas station, it was maybe about 30 cents cheaper. It's still very high.
But it's still going down. You said, why didn't he do anything? Well, he did. Is it great? No. But did he do anything? Yes.
Well, it's also it took him God knows how long, but and the damage has been done. I think by November you're going to see the clapping of a lifetime as far as your side's concerned, and I think that that's a good thing. I think it's time to make the Biden administration completely
But what
ineffectual
did
for
he
the
do with
next
gas
2
prices? You're
years.
getting off the topic here. What did he do to affect gas prices? It clearly wasn't a supply chain with the sanctions.
The sanction,
Otherwise,
the sanction. I think the
but
sanctions definitely
why?
play an
How does that
important part.
affect it? If supply hasn't been affected, why is the price going up? If demand hasn't been affected, why is price going up? And why are these companies making billions more in profits?
Like I said, it's a combination of things. Like the sanctions play one part of it, And then the companies themselves, I mean, they set the
Did these
prices.
companies just not
They're
see a
taking it.
huge opportunity with this going on to just start pumping up those prices as a way to get
Well,
even more profits because of greed?
yeah, they're taking advantage. Yes.
So is it just the greed of the companies rather than some kind of policy that Biden
I'm
input?
saying it's all of it. You're saying it's got to be one or the other. I'm saying
I'm
it's
saying what is
all
the
of it.
main driving factor? Because yes, at the end of the day,
The,
Biden is a capitalistic douchebag who is going to always favor the company over the citizens of the U.S. So yeah, I'm going to concede that point that Biden sucks. He does. Absolutely.
yeah, he's the worst. The worst president
But
of my
what
lifetime.
policy has he done to be the main driving factor behind the rise in gas prices? None. At the end of the day, none. In fact, a lot of what his policies with the whole infrastructure bill that Republicans were so ardent about,
Yo,
being
I'm with this guy
against.
in chat. This guy in chat says, "Bro, who the fuck cares if Russia invades Ukraine?" I mean, that's kind of yeah. It's like I don't give a shit, dude. I'm trying to
Me,
make my
because
bread.
I care if people dying or not.
Well, you should have told your boy Zelensky to stop being a TV clown and sucking up my tax dollars and shit and using, every last Ukrainian woman and child as cannon fodder. I mean, you gotta tell him to fucking step
Oh
up.
no, people and citizens are dying because Russian bombs are dropping on hotels and safe houses.
No, because you
Oh
got
no,
that
that's
TV.
his fault. That's
You,
not
you
the
got that
Russian
you
military
got you
dropping
got that
bombs on them.
Zelensky you got that Zelensky dude on the cover of Vogue trying to act like a hard ass talking like this. It's like, bro, first of all, you're not tough. You're a fucking
That's
TV
just what
clown.
happens. How many covers of like Time magazine and the New Yorker was FDR, Churchill, Stalin,
Bro, you're
uh,
comparing Zelensky to FDR and all those other like great figures of history, bro. That's
wartime
cap. That is
wartime
cap.
leaders always end up on magazines. That's what happens. The fact that people are all of a sudden now having an issue with it. Fucking Assad was on magazines. They're
They
mad that all these people are just getting like some kind of coverage because they're like, I don't want to think about children dying. I think that war is bad. I think that Russia should fuck off and not invade any other countries.
Bro, Russia had a reason for they didn't just do it for just because they wanted to. Like that
Everyone
was
has a reason for war. Whether the reasons are good or bad, I don't give a shit. They should.
and plus they had like hell of like Nazis and shit in Ukraine. I ain't with all that.
Oh yeah, you talking about the one battalion of like 300 people? There's Nazis in
Bro,
every country.
they have like 15,000 active servicemen in that fucking Azov battalion. I'm not even with all
And
that,
how
man.
many millions of Ukrainians otherwise?
I don't know what the total number of their military is though, so I don't know what the.
Exactly.
Well, what is it? You must know.
I don't fucking know.
Oh, then what? Then whatever. Then you get my point though. Like if there was like 15,000 motherfuckers with like swastikas on their uniform in the U.S. military, you would be screaming to high heavens. But
Yeah,
if they do it
because
over,
that's my own military. However, if China invaded America, I don't give a shit if the Nazis were fighting back against them. Go ahead.
you would
Let
team up with the Nazis, bro.
to get China out of America? Yes. And then we
That's
go
fucking crazy,
and then we
dude. What
go
the
and fight
fuck?
the Nazis. Simple.
Nah, that's not how that show usually works, though. You guys just like, bro, that's fucking nuts. I see. I always knew the liberals were like the real Nazis. Like you just admitted it.
I didn't admit it. I don't have any Nazi sympathies. In fact, you have been more Nazi sympathetic than me because you've been
How?
backing up any and every
How?
fascist regime just to try to undermine any argument I've had.
What fascist regimes have I
Assad,
backed?
Russia.
Assad? That's not. Those are not fascist regimes, though. What do you mean?
What do you mean they're not fascist? They appeal to an ultra culturalistic sense of just a past, of a past sense of
Oh
greatness.
God, yeah, having a culture in the past. Everybody's
Yeah,
yeah, it makes you a
making that
fascist.
your main thing while also providing a more dictatorial policies, an expansion of the executive power above all else, a dismantling of democracy. Yeah, all of those are tenets of fascism. You've
So
backed
okay,
up
do we live in a
every.
fascist? Do we live in a fascist regime in the U.S.?
No, but we try to toe towards it every day.
Wait, hold on a second. How come we don't? So you're saying we don't live? You cast these accusations on all these countries around the globe, but you don't ever ask yourself if we already live in a fascist regime
Because
in the
Biden
U.S.
isn't appealing to some mystical sense of like, yes, let's go back to when America was great.
I don't think that that's a prerequisite for
That is
fascism.
a
Number one.
prerequisite for fascism. It always has been. Every fascist government has had that.
My understanding of fascism was that the state and the the private sector kind of merge into like one basically, and
That is
like
also a tenet. There are multiple tenets to
yeah,
fascism.
so like
But
so okay,
the
so
thing that makes that different from just an ultra authoritarian thing is that cultural sense of just returning.
it just seems like a game of semantics. Instead of saying fascist, you're gonna say
And
ultra
either
authoritarian or
way,
something.
Assad and Biden fit in your definition too.
Well, no, because well, I don't know, man. See, Assad, it's like that's
No, 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 no,
he's
no.
for the Syrian people, though. He is for the Syrian people love him. The American people do not love Biden.
Half
Okay,
these
he's not
Syrian people do.
the
The other half
Syrian
clearly
people.
didn't if they are revolting.
You know why the Syrian people support Assad? Because they don't want their country to end up like Iraq did.
I mean, half the people do want their country to have more open democracies. Not everyone
That's
likes a
cap.
dictator.
I don't know. How do you know what the Syrian people want?
If they're fighting against Assad, they clearly don't want Assad. That's
Who's
pretty
fighting against Assad? Like Al Nusra?
anti-Assadists.
Yeah.
There
Do you
you
know what the
go.
anti-Assad? Do you want? Okay. Well, who do you think the anti-Assadists are? Do you think that there's some kind of democracy-loving
They could be
beatniks or
everything
something?
from democracy loving to Islamo-fascists to queer men. It could be literally anyone. It's a coalition for a reason.
Yeah, Cole. See, this is what I mean. Your uh, pathology is perfectly compatible with Nazism, fascism, all that stuff, and you
How?
don't even.
Because I'm opposed to
I'll
authoritarian countries
see.
invading other ones,
I'll explain
authoritarian
it to.
countries bombing their
I'll
citizens.
I'll explain it to you very
Explain it,
simply,
please.
right? Because what fascism represented historically was not actually in reality was never a return to any sort of tradition or past. The fascists in Italy and
No,
the
I'm gonna stop
fascists
you right there because
and
Mussolini
the
was
fascists
constantly always about let's get back to the old Roman days, the
let
old Roman glory,
let
the old
sure
time when
well yeah
Rome
yeah yeah
and was all
I'm
on top.
familiar. I'm familiar.
So you're just gonna
They would
ignore it.
say one thing, but their actions proved another. And I always
So they
thought it
and
was
them
funny.
invading Mediterranean
Well,
countries
let
was
me
the opposite.
finish. Let me finish what I want to say, and then you can respond. Right?
I'm gonna do
So
both
why? Okay, whatever.
simultaneously.
Just whatever. Look, let me just finish my train of thought here. When I get interrupted, it kind of. What I'm
Like,
trying to say is that in practice, fascism, Nazism, these were not returns to the past. These were not like. In fact, these were artificial interventions into culture. They were trying to disrupt the flow. Like these were not they didn't represent any sort of tradition or actual like conservatism of like their country's heritage or value. I mean, they did the opposite. They were going on a conquest. They were trying. They why like what did
so what
Ethiopia have
about
anything? What did Ethiopia have anything to do with Italy? For example, these were
creating an
not
empire that they wanted to?
creating this empire. Yeah, exactly. So they were they weren't even nationalists. They didn't just care about their own
They wanted
nation.
to.
They
You know
wanted to.
why imperialism is a thing, right? You go into another country, take their shit, bring it to yours because you want it. That is
That's not.
nationalistic.
I'm
Not to
trying to.
mention, you're saying
That's
like there
not.
was no
That
historical
is not.
return
An,
to the
that's
past
not
that
an actual.
the
That is not
fascist
an
countries were
actual.
doing. What
That is
about
not. That is
Hitler
not an actual
constantly?
nationalist. Those were not real nationalists. They did
Those
not
are
care about
nationalists. They
those.
were
They were
trying to
globalists.
promote their
They
country
were.
above all others.
They were the proto globalists, right? And so this ties into this sort of post-war,
Globalism is a whole thing of
the
like
post,
countries voluntarily coming together as
the
independent
post.
states to mutually
Uh-huh.
benefit one another.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
a
yeah. I
country
know, I know.
forcibly
Yeah,
taking
I know.
another one so one country can
That's
live in
what your
squalor
side
while the
says.
other one
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
lives in
You love globalism.
prosperity.
I know. You
I
love
don't
globalism. You're a
I don't
globalist.
like it.
You're a globalist. Okay.
I'm
And
not.
see,
You're a
and
fascist.
that's why I said I'm.
There
Yeah.
you
Okay,
go.
but
It's easy.
see, you're a globalist, and the globalists after World War II are the true successors of Nazism because the globalists wanted to export their own culture and value system on the rest of the world, just like the Nazis, just like what the Nazis, just
The
like what
Nazis
the
weren't putting the Bismarck in things. They weren't like trying to put like the German mark. They weren't going into economies like you use this dollar now. They're not going like you buy our oil. They're going like You will go to the camps. That way we can have your land and reap the benefits of it.
They were
They were
still,
constantly trying to
they were,
bring back the
they
old
were still
Prussian days
trying.
of hyper-militarism. That's
They
the
were,
appeal to the
they
past that they had.
they were trying to expand their own. What do they call it? Lebensraum, right? They were
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, they were trying to go all over, just like the liberal globalists do today. The liberal globe. I mean, even
What
look at NATO.
liberal
You know
globalist
how
has gone to a country and say, hey, ethnic group, get in the fucking shower? Not
it doesn't
one.
have to be about ethnicity, but it is the very
That is what
concept
a
of
nation is.
it's about going around the world and sticking your head where it don't belong. That's what globalists do. They go around, they claim it's about spreading.
So the voluntary just countries joining together to decide what's best for them as an independent country, but also as the globe, is the exact same thing as a country storming another one just to take what they have and expand its influence. That is so dumb. That is really dumb. That's like saying America is like you know, basically what globalists want is like what America is as like a country, states, and the federal government, right? That's more or less what a globalist wants. Even the most insane ones, that's what they want. A nationalist wants to benefit his country, his people, over everyone else in the world
Doesn't
at
have to be
any
that
cost.
way.
No, at any cost. There's
No,
a
that's not
difference.
a real. That's not a real nationalist. That's a
That is
fake
a
one.
real nationalist. He wants his country to be the best and
A
only
real,
the best.
yeah,
Number
yeah.
one,
No,
that
not at
means
the
doing
expense.
at
Not at the expense
any
of anybody.
that
It's
means
just
for any means necessary.
that's what I'm saying. Like that's not. Those aren't real. You're not thinking of a real nationalist. A real nationalist wants what's best for their country,
You're
but they don't
confusing
necessarily.
nationalism with patriotism.
Mate, I don't. Whatever. Sure, whatever. But the point is that it's not necessarily at the expense of anybody else.
It
That's
is.
the
It
point.
always is. Because for your country to be the best, someone has to be on bottom.
That's what you think. I don't agree with that. But you know what? Like I was saying, the globalists being the successors of the Nazis. Look who are some of the original who were the most instrumental people in setting up NATO. Ex Nazis, bro. Boom, there you go.
Yeah, because America really wanted to fight back against the communists.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So you guys, your side, are willing to ally yourselves with Nazis or jihadi fundament. I mean, just like the most insane people in order to sustain the globalist
When did I ever say
world
that?
order. I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm just talking
Yeah,
about
no,
the
but what you're
globalists in
saying, you
general.
guys, when did
Well, the
I
side you
say that?
support, because you voted for Biden and stuff. You guys are globalists, right?
I'm not. You're
You're
making a lot of baseless accusations based off just who I voted for.
Can you
You
put
have
your
listened
hand
to
up?
almost nothing I've said into this conversation, and I've just
Put your
constantly
hand
been
up.
going.
Okay, put your hand up in the air and swear that you're not a globalist.
Other hand, I am not a globalist.
All right, I guess I'll believe you for now.
All right, cool.
Well then, look, I have to go, but it was fun talking to you.
Yeah, no, this was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you. I think next time I'll prepare something so we don't
Nah,
have to go off
don't
in this-
prepare. It's way more fun just going at it like a normal person.
Okay.
Debate bros are boring.
Debate pro. Oh, yeah. I don't really watch a lot of that stuff. Sometimes I catch it on YouTube or something. But yeah, man, it was nice talking to you. I just want to have like a more. I want to do a part 2 maybe in the next couple weeks or something.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to do.
All right, man. Catch you later.
All right, man. God bless.
All right. See you.
That was fun, y'all. That was fun. That's the second debate I've had on this channel with a random person. That was fun. I liked it.